Chapter 359. The cold wind was mournful, the night was silent. Marquis Jingon Fu was tranquil. An invisible storm was slowly accumulating under the calm surface. Qin Darren sat in the main hall, with a chessboard in front of him. He twirled a white chess piece and leisurely placed a piece, smiling as he said, "Brother Yuanzhong, your heart is in chaos." One Yuanzhong sat opposite him and played chess with the imperial envoy. Hearing this, he smiled and couldn't help but admire Qin Darren's ability to maintain his composure. Tonight, a storm was brewing. The traps in the courtyard were set up properly, and the imperial envoy guards returned to their rooms, waiting for the enemy to walk right into their trap. The imperial envoy Darren planned and arranged everything properly. He sat in the middle, playing chess and chatting with a calm expression. This kind of ability to maintain his composure without being alarmed, even if the sky collapsed, this kind of confidence to determine victory from 1,000 miles away, as expected of someone who had been on the battlefield before. The imperial envoy's flag bearer held a black chess piece in one hand and a judge's brush in the other. 70% of his attention was outside the game. He looked around nervously, afraid that the enemy would suddenly attack. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, "Imperial Envoy Darren, since there will be an enemy attack tonight, why not invite Hu Yi over? The Thunder Bow is famous throughout the 6 armies. With him here, wouldn't it save a lot of trouble?" Qin Hui sneered and placed another chess piece. "What I want is for him to not be here, so that he won't cause trouble for me." One Yuanzhong was shocked when he heard this and said, "You mean..." The Imperial Envoy Darren glanced at him without batting an eyelid. "Brother Yuanzhong, you may know a person for a long time without understanding their heart. In the future, you have to be careful. The waters in this Marquis Jingon Fu are extremely muddy. Starting from this morning, there hasn't been a single thing that went smoothly. That Zhao Fei Huang looks delicate and pitiful, but in reality, he is crafty and shrewd. Today, he really caught us off guard and left us dejected. Tonight, if we don't work hard and grasp the key to breaking the situation and counterattacking, I'm afraid that the Marquis Jingon Fu's line will be completely cut off. AI, it's all my fault for being careless. I thought that if I followed Hu Shoshin over, things would go smoothly." One Yuanzhong gasped, his face slightly pale. "You mean Hu Shoshin?" Qin Hui said faintly, "I don't wish for this to happen either, but a person's heart is fickle, and it's hard to protect a mortal body. Brothers who once entrusted their lives to each other will eventually drift apart because of their different paths." One Yuanzhong shut his mouth. Although he was naive, he was not naive. He knew that it was not his place to express his opinion. The flag bearer rolled his eyes and asked, "Sir, may I ask why you are so sure that there will be changes tonight?" Qin Hui smiled coldly. "This morning, when this official was announcing the imperial edict, I discovered a bare-chested man carrying a giant blade and wearing a triangular iron helmet. At that time, I was somewhat surprised. Later on, I thought that this was probably a show of strength that the Marquis's estate had prepared for me. That triangular-headed person's attire and appearance gave off a sinister and strange aura. No matter how daring Marquis Jing and Fu is, they wouldn't dare to attack and kill the imperial envoy. They're probably trying to act mysterious." He placed another piece and said coldly, "This triangular-headed man is just trying to scare the two of them. If he succeeds in scaring this official, it will cause the imperial envoy guards to panic. It will lead to a conspiracy and divert their attention, making it easier for them to carry out their plans. Scaring eldest young Miss Zhao will logically cause this eldest young miss to be bedridden again, delaying the imperial order. Humph. It's been hard on them to start laying the groundwork during the day. But since this official is here, this official will not allow this kind of thing to happen. No matter who this triangular-headed person wants to scare, this official will capture him tonight and interrogate him strictly to take back the initiative." Speaking to this point, the imperial envoy Darren was already brimming with murderous intent. Right now, it's not like yesterday, when we encountered a monster that could attack us without showing himself. Today, the one trying to act mysterious is just a triangular-headed person disguised as a thief. Even if he has some martial arts skills, what use is there? If we don't let Marquis Jing and Fu see what we're capable of, they'll think that the Imperial Envoy Guards are made of mud. This official has just been conferred the Imperial Army by the Imperial Court. Today, this official still wants to make a profit. Wan Yuanzhong seemed to prostrate himself in front of the tyrannical aura emitted from Qin Daren's body. Hearing what was said, he nodded his head in admiration, repeatedly praising the Imperial Envoy for planning before acting. His wisdom was as deep as the sea, as expected of a pillar of the Imperial Court. He flattered for a while before suddenly remembering something. Speaking of which, that monster has already disappeared for 2 days. Has it already given up? Most likely it has already escaped without a trace. It really got off easy. I was just wondering if it had the guts to attack Marquis Jing and Fu at night. After thinking about it, it really is a joke. Not to mention that the Marquis Fu is heavily guarded, who Darren is also at the side. Even if this monster ate a leopard's gall, it still wouldn't dare to come over and stir up the tiger's whiskers. Qin Hui's expression suddenly changed. Her gaze towards Wan Yuanzhong was filled with despair and some desolation. Wan Yuanzhong felt that he seemed to have heard a familiar voice. In an instant, his expression also became helpless and sorrowful. No, it can't be Bingo. In an instant, the earth quaked and the mountains swayed. The violent power shook the world, setting off a hurricane. In an instant, the roof was directly lifted off by the terrifying power, and the shocking sound waves swept in. Time seemed to stop for a moment. Then, endless terror exploded. The Imperial Envoy Guards were prepared for battle and rubbed their fists. They were ready to get back all the humiliation they had suffered in the past 2 days and give the thief, who was pretending to be a ghost, a solid beating. However, this voice rang out like a ghost. In an instant, it pulled everyone back to the terrifying night from 2 days ago. They instantly recalled the fear of being dominated by that terrifying greater demon. F***CK. Bingo. So. In an instant, the morale of the guards fell from the peak to the bottom. Screams of despair rang out one after another. Humans were not Saint Seiya's. They could not be defeated by the same enemy twice. Moreover, the tragedy of that night was repeating itself. With the screams of despair, invisible hands reached out from the deep darkness and pulled the guards into the air one by one. Tam. Like an evil spell, the terrifying enemy hidden in the darkness seemed to be drawing some kind of nourishment from the victims. Perhaps it was fear, or perhaps it was life. It appeared and disappeared unpredictably, ruthlessly, and calmly. Step by step, it carried out its plan. One by one, after the screams of the victims, they were hung in mournful and pitiful positions from the treetops, powerlessly struggling. In this situation, under the endless terror, it seemed that everything hidden in the darkness was twisting and changing shape. The trees that looked very normal during the day also seemed to change their appearance in the night. The strong and ancient tree branches seemed to become tentacles that were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, thirsting for blood. They firmly hooked the victims on top and danced in ecstasy. More and more Imperial guards screamed in despair and fled, but no one was able to escape. Because Zayad is ad, Woching ad. In this human tragedy, Wan Yuanzhong's legs trembled. Holding the judge's pen and protecting the Imperial envoy, he shouted with a pale face, "Sir, you can't do this. Leave quickly." Qin Hui could swear that he had never missed brother Hu Shoshin as much as he did today. If time could be reversed, if fate could be redone, he would hang tightly on Uncle Hu's body for the entire day and would never be separated from him. At this moment, he shouted in despair, "Don't worry about me. Quickly go over there and get Leader Hu." A glimmer of determination flashed across Wan Yuanzhong's face. He roared, "Sir, take care." Then, he used the judge's pen to protect his body. Going against the wild wind, he charged in the direction of the small building Hu Shoshin lived in. His gaze was firm and his mind was like a wheel. "I can do it. The monster is targeting Sir." At this moment, his attention is attracted by his fellow guards. The sky is already dark. If I move quickly, I can rush out of the courtyard before he notices. The closer I am to the small building, the greater the chance. I'm skilled in Qigong. I have at least an 80% chance of success. Then, just as this thought formed, a dark and cold wind attacked him from behind. A deafening roar rang out in the depths of his soul, shaking him until he was dizzy. You, a Sesbi. One Yuanzhong flew away with a blood-curdling scream. He was hung from a tall tree all the way like a chicken waiting to be slaughtered at dawn. At this moment, everyone in the Imperial Envoy's guard had been wiped out. Only the Imperial Envoy's face was pale as he roared in despair. Perhaps the monster had other plans, or perhaps it was enjoying the pleasure of teasing its prey. So no matter how much Sir Qin roared, the monster was not in a hurry to attack. Qin Hui's chest filled with anger. He stomped his feet and cursed. The sound just now was earth-shattering, but there was no reaction from the Marquis Manor. He had no time to think about whether it was the evil magic of the monster or some other reason. He didn't know what was about to happen to him. He could only maintain the last bit of dignity he had as an Imperial envoy. I am an Imperial envoy. You attacked an Imperial envoy. The court will not let this go. Do you hear me? Another strange and incomprehensible roar responded to him. You, a Sesbi. 2. An invisible and terrifying power swept towards Sir Qin. The Imperial envoy gritted his teeth and placed his hand on his waist. Just as he was about to use his last resort, a dazzling flash of lightning suddenly flashed in the distance. Evil creature, how dare you? In Sir Qin's eyes, the vibration of the thunder and the dazzling light were not stingy with the Buddha's light and chanting. He was almost moved to tears. A brilliant flash of lightning roared and broke through the darkness. A moment later, a painful roar came from the darkness. F***CK. You, Hanzhua. A heart-palpitating pressure swept through the air and quickly disappeared into the distance. It seemed that the terrifying monster had also been defeated by Hu Shouxin and retreated pathetically. Qin Hui looked from afar and saw Hu Shouxin's figure in a sorry state. There were still some weeds and leaves hanging from his body. He held the thunderbow in his hand and pulled the string. Electricity curled around his body as he turned into a purple rainbow and rushed into the distance. He seemed to be extremely angry. He shouted, "Brother, don't chase a cornered enemy." Unfortunately, Hu Shouxin was already far away. Qin Hui narrowly escaped death and found that his back was already soaked with sweat. He looked back and saw that the small courtyard was in ruins. The roof was open and the cold wind was silent. His companions were all hanging from the trees, screaming and struggling. How lonely and desolate it was. Helpless, he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Help! Help!" At this moment, he still didn't know that the real trick had just begun. Chapter 360. In the night sky, streaks of lightning streaked across the vast sky. Hu Shouxin's body was covered in lightning as he increased his speed to the maximum. He was furious. This bastard, this bastard, this bastard. After being ruthlessly played by this bastard tonight, old Hu's shame turned into anger. He snapped, "Stop right there." Loud shouts could be heard from the front. "Yoa, not, Hang Kong Rue Pow." Although he didn't understand what he was saying, Stick could still hear the complacency and mockery in his opponent's words. He was furious. He drew his thunderbow and shot out 3 arrows. Lightning bolts shot out like dragons, splitting the deep darkness. These 3 arrows were shot out in anger. They were serious. Obviously, they had caused enough trouble for the evildoers who were trying to escape. The opponent cursed 3. Ofu. B***TCH. Hu Shouxin understood. After all, he had heard this before. He roared, F***CK. Don't think I don't know what you're talking about. I understand. Ho, lay, SH**T. As soon as he finished speaking, a sigh full of surprise and praise came from the front. What? Good. Bo AI. Old Hu was seething with anger. The two of them sped through the city of Mingzhou and soon arrived at a desolate area. Hu Shouxin growled and his thunderbow lit up with brilliant light, shooting straight through the air. 12 bolts of lightning shot into the sky like lightning snakes before landing back down. They circled around the perimeter and flickered with dangerous light, sealing off all paths of escape. The evildoer finally landed on the ground. He turned around and looked at Hu Shoshin with a surprised expression. He opened his arms and welcomed old Hu, saying the same words, "Oh, my." Fu rund. The veins on old Hu's forehead bulged. He said gloomily, "Speak human language." Sun Lang had an exaggerated expression on his face. He waved his hands, and a look of understanding appeared on his face. He seemed to have remembered his friend's name and said clumsily, "Who? Begu. Dick." Hu Shoshin couldn't take it anymore. He raised his thunder bow and aimed it at Sun Lang's face. F*CKU. Sun Lang nimbly dodged the attack and raised his leg to kick Hu Shoshin's butt. An archer fighting in close combat. Do you have any shame? Hu Shoshin struck back with his elbow, while Sun Lang chopped down with his palm. The two of them exchanged a few blows at lightning speed. Sun Lang had the upper hand and laughed. You've played too much Faust. Do you really think that archer can restrain saber? Today, let me tell you, those with full broken skills and full relic have nothing to fear. Even if you have thousands of meteors, it's useless. What nonsense are you talking about? Seeing that he couldn't gain the upper hand, Hu Shoshin didn't want to continue fighting. Besides, he didn't come here to fight. He drew his bow and forced Sun Lang back with an arrow. He jumped back a few steps and said angrily, "What the hell do you want?" Sun Lang opened his arms and chanted, F*CK. Oh, North Genius. Hu Shoshin was getting more and more annoyed and shouted, "Sun Lang, stop fooling around. This is related to Brother Qin's career and future. He has been studying hard for more than 10 years, struggling in the bureaucracy for more than 10 years. His family's high hopes, his wife's concern, and his life's work and hope can't be destroyed by you. If he doesn't do this well, his career will be over." Sun Lang sneered. "What's so good about being the emperor's dog? What does it have to do with me, whether he's an official or not? You have a good heart, Stick Hu. Don't help him count the money after being sold." "What nonsense are you talking about? Even if you don't like him, he's still a soldier of Tianyuan. He's also our comrade," Hu Shoshin said angrily. "What the hell are you thinking? This is related to his life. How can you play around with it? How long do you want to be willful? It's time for you to be sensible." Sun Lang looked at him from the corner of his eyes. "How am I not sensible?" Hu Shoshin said coldly. "If you're sensible, you can't do whatever you want. You have to think for others. Let's not talk about this time. Let's talk about Master Lu. Right now, there's a storm in the court. The Imperial envoy is stationed in Jialu town, and the demon soldiers are all over the place. Everyone has their eyes on Lu Shujin. Everyone has to find her. Do you know how dangerous this is?" Sun Lang snorted. "I know. I've already made thorough preparations. Thorough my ass. Can you and Zhao Yunlong protect her for a lifetime?" Hu Shoshin's spittle flew everywhere as he roared. The real way to be fully prepared is to solve the problem from the root. The Lu Town incident can obviously be covered up before it ferments and explodes. I've already mentioned it to you. Among the survivors, there is an idiot whose surname is Kong. He stole the ancestral property of the Lu family and ruined Master Lu's family. Such a person is simply the perfect candidate. We could just push all the blame onto him and kill him to keep his mouth shut. Then, we can clean up the mess and prepare sufficient evidence. Plus, with the help of our old friends in the Heaven's Origin sector in the Imperial Court, the matter can be evaded on the surface. Sun Lang raised his eyebrows and sneered. "You're bringing up the past again. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You're always like this. You seem to know and understand everything, but you just won't tell me." Hu Shoshin roared. "That Kong's crimes are irrefutable. Even death can't wipe out his crimes. Even if he pays with his life, so what? You can't even differentiate between what's important and what's not. You let him go and even cleaned up the mess for him, allowing him to escape without a trace. Instead, you let Lu Shuren bear countless risks. Which side are you on? No matter how good the reason for letting him go is, can it be compared to the safety of your fellow soldiers?" Sun Lang said indifferently, "You don't understand, but I do. Master Lu understands. That's enough. This is our business. Even if I tell you, You won't understand. Hushoshin was so angry that he couldn't speak. His chest rose and fell violently, and his hair and beard fluttered. His eyes were full of confusion and disappointment. He took a deep breath and nodded. Okay. Let's not talk about this for now. Brother Qin, Sun Lang said coldly, since he's here and wants to do something big, I'll let him go home crying. Old Hu, weren't you the one who called Yo Chao Qin here? Weren't you the one who talked to the capital and found someone to clean up your mess? Why does he seem to know nothing about your plan? What? You haven't told him yet. Hearing this, Hushoshin's expression froze. He said in a muffled voice, in order to help you cover it up, I told the capital that I accidentally found out and interfered with the things that happened in Mingzhou. I also asked them to send someone to put on a play and cover up this matter beautifully. I didn't expect that it was Brother Qin who came. Although he's an acquaintance, he's a righteous and smart person. If I told him frankly, I'm afraid he'd see some clues. After all, I didn't do those things. Lies can't withstand scrutiny. If he found some clues and then accidentally found out that you're still alive, with your personality, you probably wouldn't let him go. Hushoshin sighed and looked embarrassed. I thought about it and decided to hide it from him for a while. If you and Miss Zhao's arrangement was flawless and he found out that there was no demon artifact, then this matter could be settled beautifully and I wouldn't have to come out and add more variables. I didn't expect you. Sun Lang rolled his eyes when he heard this. Let everyone have a happy ending. This kind of idiotic dream, I threw it aside when I was in junior high school. Old Hu, I didn't expect that under your rough and heroic appearance, there was a gentle and kind herbivorous Japanese male protagonist's heart. Why? You haven't been in a war for 2 years. The daydream is quite beautiful. Huh? Hushoshin said coldly. What? Sun Lang showed a sarcastic smile. Your dreams are always so beautiful. Unfortunately, everyone developed according to the script you expected and got a happy ending. This kind of thing can only exist in games. If anyone thinks that playing a lot of dating games can make him a Casanova, then there must be something wrong with his head. Hushoshin listened to his nonsense and couldn't get the point for a while. He said impatiently, What are you trying to say? Sun Lang walked a few steps with his hands behind his back, looked up at the dark sky, and said leisurely, The human heart. I'm saying, in your script, you forgot to calculate the human heart. You want everyone to be well and want everything to be settled satisfactorily. This can't be said to be wrong. After all, dreams are still very important. But your dream is very beautiful, but your plan is very clumsy. You have too much faith in the human heart. Old Hu. He reached out his hand and pointed at Hushoshin. You believe in Qin Hui's pure heart and sincerity. You believe that he is upright and selfless. You believe that he is a good person. But you don't think about how dangerous the ups and downs of the officialdom are, how tempting it is. You don't think about whether he has changed after facing so many temptations in these years. You believe that I care about my old friend and will show mercy. But you don't think that in my eyes now, Qin Hui's future and even his life is not as important as a strand of hair of Miss Zhao. You still think that I am still the same as before, but you refuse to accept the fact that everything has changed. You don't dare to think about why I am so wary of everything. You believe that you are still the same as before, living in that wonderful dream of Tianyuan. Although the conditions back then were difficult and the sky demon was still closing in step by step, everyone gathered together. Although there were conflicts between each other, everyone was willing to shed the last drop of blood for this country. They were willing to die to restore the country. You think that everyone is a hero for the country and the people, reasonable and sensible. But now it is different. Sun Lang smiled, but there was a bit of sadness in his smile. Wake up, Old Hu. The war is over. It's time to divide the spoils. The human heart. Hushoshin slowly raised his head and looked at Sun Lang. You have changed? Sun Lang said lightly, I have changed long ago. The former me is already dead. The one who is alive now is a selfish, willful, self-righteous, dangerous, evil, and twisted bastard. It is as if I have been reborn. Hushoshin clenched his teeth and said, No, I don't believe it. You're not like this. You used to be bright and righteous, so heroic that countless people followed you wholeheartedly. You, Sun Lang impatiently interrupted him. That was all an act. It was all to make myself live a little more comfortably, so that you can live a little more at ease. Now it seems that going too far is as bad as falling short. Since you're still not at ease, then I don't need to pretend anymore. Hating you, hating this world, is it only right and proper? Old Hu, you are a reasonable person. For me to kill the emperor's entire family, is it not right and proper? Hu Shoshin shook his head and said, No, I don't believe it. This is not something that can be faked. Sun Lang, wake up, Old Hu. Sun Lang patted his shoulder and sighed. You don't need to care about what I am like. The most important thing right now is not this, right? I have already said that we are now two different people. You have your brother Qin, and I have my Zhao Feihuang. In order to protect Miss Zhao, I will do my best to make Qin Youqiao get out of Mingzhou in a sorry state. If he does not know what is good for him, I will make him lose his foothold in the imperial court. If he is deranged, then I will make him disappear from this world completely. He looked at Hu Shoshin, whose eyes were complicated and difficult to understand, and said lightly, We have fought together for so many years. You know my methods. Once I take action, I will never leave a way out for others. What happens next will be the last warning. If you want to protect your brother Qin, you have to think carefully. Sun Lang thought for a while and patted the silent Old Hu on the shoulder. I will give you one last piece of advice. Think about what I said, think about the human heart, and be more careful in everything. Don't look at me, I just said it casually. Maybe I'm thinking too much, and I don't have any evidence. Humph, if I had concrete evidence, do you think he would still be alive in this world? After saying this, Sun Lang floated away, leaving Hu Shoshin standing alone in the night wind. Old Hu was silent, and his lips trembled, silently repeating the same word. Human heart, human heart. He touched his heart, looked at the silent night sky, and let out a long sigh, revealing a bitter smile. Madam, back then, you advised me to take off my armor and return home after I succeeded. I followed your advice, but not completely. I could not let go of my brothers in this country, so I became a wanderer in Mingzhou, always looking south at the imperial capital. Once the country summoned me, I would put on my armor and mount a horse. Now it seems that Madam is very wise. Even though I have resigned and returned home, I am still struggling in this whirlpool. It is really tiring. When this matter is over, I will step down from my position as the head of the association, wash my hands of the gold basin, completely abandon everything, and return home to reunite with you and our child. I will no longer care about worldly matters, and we will never be separated again. A gentle smile appeared on his face, and he suddenly realized that Sun Lang had already left, and he was here then. Oh no, Brother Qin. He stamped his feet and said, I was fooled like this. Thus, Hu Shoshin ran as fast as he could, his heart burning with anxiety. He rushed back to the Marquis Manor. Looking from a distance, he saw that the manor was lit up with flames and the sound of people. Many people were running toward the imperial envoy's courtyard. Seeing this, his heart relaxed slightly. It was good to have more people. It was good to have more people. More people meant that Sun Lang would no longer cause trouble. So, he flipped over the wall, and his body was like lightning. He had already arrived at the small courtyard. Seeing the situation, he sucked in a breath of cold air and almost fainted. He saw a huge flagpole inserted into the ground, and the imperial envoy's banner fluttered in the wind. There was a person hanging on the banner. If it was not the imperial envoy, who else could it be? Everyone out of the way. Hu Shoshin saw that more and more people were surrounding them, and immediately leaped up to rescue Qin Hui, whose face was crumbling in despair. Old Hu was angry and ashamed in his heart. Sun Lang, this little bastard, he really deserved to be beaten. Mother of asterisk Kerr. Just a second ago, he was still trying to reason with a face full of vicissitudes of life, and then he floated away. Then he ran back here and hung Brother Qin on the flagpole. How could this bastard be so careless? Hu Shoshin gritted his teeth in his heart. He reached out to check Qin Hui's breathing, and then wave his hand in front of his eyes. Fortunately, he was still there and had only suffered a little shock. His tone was sincere as he blamed himself. "Brother, I am useless. I am really ashamed to have caused you to suffer such humiliation." Qin Hui looked at Hu Shouxin with empty eyes, and suddenly 2 lines of clear tears flowed down his face. "Brother, I feel bitter in my heart. I also feel bitter in my heart. How did this stupid thing turn out like this?" Old Hu had thousands of words in his heart that he could not say in detail. For a moment, all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. At this time, he saw Qin Hui trembling as he said, "Brother, you didn't catch that evil thief." "Nonsense, this bastard was able to kite the thousands of dragon riders of the sky demon back in the day." Old Hu said in shame, "I am ashamed, I am useless, and actually lost him." "Brother, it's all my fault, it's all my fault." Qin Hui said mournfully, "It's not brother's fault, it's just that this little brother has a hard life. It's just that brother, the one that came today, is the demon that this little brother provoked the day before yesterday." This is good." Hu Shouxin smiled bitterly when he heard this. He saw the panic in Qin Hui's eyes and knew the severity of this matter. The imperial envoy had gone to Marquis Jinggan Fu to investigate a case and had not made any progress. But the Marquis Fu was attacked in the middle of the night. The demon that launched the attack was not someone else, but a demon that the imperial envoy had inadvertently provoked. This meant that the Marquis Fu was implicated. If Zhao Feihuang took the opportunity to lodge a complaint, Qin Hui's political life would be over. But Hu Shouxin knew what was going on. This demon was originally Zhao Feihuang's lover. The nature of this matter was clearly that the Marquis Fu had plotted to secretly harm the imperial envoy. But this matter could not be said. If it was said, someone would die. Could this be Sun Lang's scheme? It really hit the nail on the head. Hu Shouxin did not know how to resolve this situation when he suddenly heard a commotion in the crowd. The torches shone, and it turned out that the steward from the external manor had rushed over. His face was pale, and he shouted, "Don't just stand there. Quickly find a ladder to save the Darren on the tree." "AI, where's the imperial envoy? Is the imperial envoy all right?" That steward looked around and finally found the imperial envoy. His face was pale, and he knelt on the ground with a plop, repeatedly kowtowing. "Darren has been frightened. Darren has been frightened. The Marquis Fu has always been peaceful and has never had any demons. What exactly happened? We really do not know. We really do not know." Then Hu Shouxin felt Qin Hui's body suddenly tremble. A bad premonition arose in his heart. Taking a closer look, Qin Hui's face showed an expression of sudden realization and decisiveness. Then, Hu Shouxin heard his worthy younger brother Qin let out a wretched and angry shout. "Your Marquis Jinggan Fu, this is how you welcome the imperial envoy? Is it that you have a guilty conscience? So you colluded with the demon to secretly harm this official? You have committed such a serious crime. Do you believe that I will immediately submit a memorial to His Majesty and implicate all 9 generations of your family?" Once these words were said, the surrounding people of the Marquis Fu were all scared out of their wits and knelt on the ground. That steward was even more unbearable and repeatedly kowtowed, shouting in despair, "We are innocent. Darren, please investigate. Darren, please investigate." In this atmosphere of despair and terror, Hu Shouxin glanced at his worthy younger brother Qin. The other person's face, under the flickering light of the torches, was so sinister. Chapter 361. The night wind was bone-chilling. Amidst the broken walls and ruins, the heavy and terrifying atmosphere pressed down on the hearts of everyone in the Marquis Fu. Qin Hui's hair was disheveled. His words were harsh. His gentle and refined face during the day had become hysterical, filled with a frightened anger. And when had the stewards and servants of Marquis Jinggan Fu, who had rushed over to save people, seen this kind of scene? Even though they didn't have much experience. But in front of them was a collapsed courtyard. The imperial envoy guards were all hung on trees, and even the imperial envoy himself had just been hung on a flagpole. No matter how stupid they were, they understood the consequences of something happening to the imperial envoy in the Marquis Fu. so everyone present was scared out of their wits. People were all creatures that followed the crowd. At this time, the imperial power was pressing down, and the imperial envoy's anger was boiling. They all knelt down in fright, repeatedly kowtowing to beg for mercy. Only Hushoshin stood in place, his body ice-cold, his gaze strange, as if this was the first time he was seeing this former comrade in front of him. Qin Hui was still continuing his performance, angrily roaring. "Where's your eldest young miss? Where's your steward Sue? Has he already fled out of fear of punishment? She wants to harm me, this Qin, but this Qin carries His Majesty's great trust and has the protection of the Emperor's grace. My life is great, I won't die. Since I won't die, then if Marquis Jingon Fu doesn't give me an explanation today, in the future, the court will demand an explanation from you." That steward trembled as he said, "But eldest young miss, she is still resting in bed." Qin Hui roared. "Do you think this official's current condition is very good? What do you mean? Do you want this official to change to another place in this Marquis Fu to continue sleeping after being attacked by an unknown monster?" The steward could only kowtow repeatedly, crying, "This lowly one doesn't dare, this lowly one doesn't dare." But Qin Hui wanted to continue scolding, but Hushoshin silently went forward and pressed on his shoulder. "Younger brother Qin?" The imperial envoy turned his head. In the light of the fire, their eyes met. Qin Hui saw the dissatisfaction and confusion in Hushoshin's eyes, but Hushoshin saw a flash of pleading in Qin Hui's eyes. Although he didn't say anything, Hushoshin noticed what Qin Hui wanted to express. That helpless despair, the madness of grasping at the last life-saving straw. If Lady Zhao knew that the demon that attacked the Marquis Manor and frightened the imperial envoy was actually provoked by the imperial envoy himself, given Zhao Feihuang's shrewdness and ability, how could he not seize this matter and make a big deal out of it? Instead of falling into a passive position, he might as well beat them at their own game and fight with all his might. "Brother, little brother's life and future in the officialdom will depend on this gamble." Hushoshin's expression changed drastically, and he used more strength. "Brother!" A trace of malice flashed in Qin Hui's eyes. Suddenly, her right shoulder shook. This time, she had used all her strength. Hushoshin was caught off guard, and his arm bounced off. Then, without giving old Hu any chance, Qin Hui shouted, "Brother, there's no need to say anything. As an imperial envoy, I represent His Majesty's might. Being attacked here tonight is a loss of face for the royal family. How can we just let it go like this?" Hushoshin was shaken back 2 steps. The blood in his chest roiled. For a moment, he was so angry that he couldn't speak. "Brother, you're so stupid." The demon that attacked you was clearly on Zhao Feihuang's side. If you want to accuse her, aren't you afraid that she'll retaliate? At this moment, he suddenly remembered Sun Lang's indifferent gaze and the words he had said earlier. "We fought together for so many years. You know my methods. Once I make a move, I never leave anyone a way out. What happens next will be the final warning." In an instant, he seemed to understand what Sun Lang's plan was. For a moment, cold sweat seeped out of his back. Sun Lang's cold smile rose in his mind. Perhaps all of this was within his control. Not a single step was wrong. Not a single step was wrong. Relying on his understanding of Qin Hui, he had led himself step by step into the fatal trap that would bury him. This was clearly an unstoppable plot. The plan had already begun from the moment he left Mingzhou and disguised himself as a demon to attack the imperial envoy ship. However, he couldn't remind or warn her because there were some words that, if spoken, would kill Qin Hui. Was this also within your expectations? Sun Lang, cold sweat had already seeped out of Hushoshin's forehead. He racked his brains and racked his brain, but he couldn't think of an effective way to stop this. After all, he was a general and not a military advisor. Battles of wits were not his strong suit. His opponent also didn't plan on giving him any time to think of a plan. In the distance, there was noise and indistinct shouts. Hushoshin was an archer with sharp ears and eyes. After hearing clearly, he sighed sadly. Zhao Feihuang had come. Sun Lang was about to pull in the net. Brother Qin, this time, you've really made a mistake. The imperial envoy had been attacked and was furious. He had threatened to report this to the emperor. The terrifying consequences of deceiving the emperor made everyone in the Marquis Manor terrified. They were in chaos. They were helpless, they were afraid, and they hoped for the arrival of their backbone. Eldest young Miss Zhao Fei Huang, the true mastermind of the Marquis Fu, had already used her increasingly mature methods and abilities to convince everyone. Thus, when young Miss Zhao, draped in a fox-white fur coat, slowly walked over with the support of housekeeper Su, the panicked and helpless people seemed to have seen hope. They cried out with a sobbing tone, "Eldest young miss, you've finally come." Zhao Fei Huang's complexion was still somewhat pale, as if she still hadn't recovered from the fury of the day. She was supported by housekeeper Su. Perhaps because of the cold night wind, 2 red blossoms appeared on her delicate face. Although her body was weak and her appearance was beautiful, her eyes were incomparably sharp. They swept over the kneeling people, and she said in a low voice, "Rise." The people of the Marquis Manor never kneel for no reason. Kneel for no reason? Qin Hui's anger turned into laughter. She took a step forward and shouted, "Zhao Fei Huang, do you know your crime?" Young Lady Zhao gently pushed aside Su Qingwan beside her. She looked at the imperial envoy and calmly said, "Oh, may I know what crime this little girl has committed?" Qin Hui angrily pointed to the shattered courtyard and the imperial envoy guards that had been carefully rescued. She sternly said, "I, Qin, receive His Majesty's orders to come to the Marquis of Jing'an's Manor in Mingzhou to investigate the rumors of the demonic weapon. I didn't expect that we would be attacked by demons that very night and almost lose our lives. The imperial envoy guards are in a sorry state, and the imperial flag was humiliated. Where's the imperial family's face?" Zhao Fei Huang calmly said, "The Marquis Manor has always been peaceful, and there has never been demons causing trouble. Why is it that when Imperial Envoy Darren came tonight, this kind of thing happened? There must be someone purposely causing trouble. But no matter what, since Darren was attacked in the Marquis Manor, then the Marquis of Jing'an's Manor cannot escape responsibility. This matter is the fault of the Marquis Manor's guards. I will naturally submit a memorial to the court and ask for punishment. Would Imperial Envoy Darren please temporarily calm your anger? After all, we also don't want to see this kind of thing happen." She thought for a bit and gently said, "Looking at it now, there must be a hostile force with malicious intentions that has set their eyes on the Marquis Manor. They want to use this matter to frame and shift the blame to the Marquis Manor. I have thought about it. Our Marquis Manor is a good family. Even though we have guards, they're only people who look after the house and only know a bit of superficial martial arts. I'm afraid that they won't be able to protect Darren's safety. So I would like to be bold and ask Imperial Envoy Darren to move to the provincial capital and head to the official relay station to stay. How about coming to investigate during the day? As for the fright that Darren has received today, the Marquis Manor will prepare some gifts as a token of apology." With just a few words, this woman had cleanly cast away the responsibility of the Marquis Manor. She was only willing to admit the responsibility of not being able to protect properly and push the matter to the non-existent culprit. At the same time, she also pushed this official out. She wanted to use this matter to have the Imperial Envoy move to the reception station and stay far away. In this world, how could there be such a good thing? At this time, Hu Shoshin suddenly took a few steps forward and said in a heavy voice, "Imperial Envoy Darren, I see that what Ms. Zhao said is reasonable. Tonight, the Marquis Manor was negligent in not being able to protect properly, but you also saw that the strength of that demon was not something that the Marquis Manor could deal with. For the safety of you and everyone else, you should first move to the relay station in Mingzhou. As for the crime of the Marquis Manor not being able to protect properly, after this matter is concluded, it will be reported to the court for the officials to make a decision." Qin Hui glanced at him expressionlessly. Her heart was already filled with incomparable coldness and disappointment. "You, as expected, are you in cahoots with her?" Even though with the imperial envoy Darren's imagination, it was very difficult to connect the crazy emu enroué on the canal with the Marquis Manor. After all, he was also unwilling to believe that the Marquis Manor could recruit such a terrifying demon. But he turned his head and ignored Hu Shouxin. Looking at eldest Miss Zhao, he smiled coldly. You want me to leave the Marquis Manor? Miss Zhao, is this your goal and scheme? Zhao Feihuang's expression changed, and she said coldly, what does Imperial Envoy dare mean? There is no harm in making it clear. Qin Hui looked at her with a sharp gaze and slowly said, ever since we arrived at the Marquis Manor today, not a single thing has gone smoothly. Eldest Miss, you appear to be respectful, but in reality, you are obstructing this official everywhere, obstructing this official and making things difficult for the guards. During the day, you use this as a pretext to make a fuss in the hall, pressuring this official step by step, wanting to force this official to compromise. In the afternoon, when the guards were investigating the case, your family's wicked servants all made a scene and refused to cooperate. This official does not believe that you did not instruct them to do so. Tonight, the evil wind billowed, the shadow of a demon appeared, and there was even a deranged evil person that brazenly attacked this official and my colleagues, almost taking our lives. His voice and expression were stern as he shouted at Miss Zhao. I think that tonight's demon was also found by eldest Miss, right? Zhao Feihuang's expression was calm, and she said in a heavy voice, a bunch of nonsense. Imperial Envoy Darren, don't make slanderous accusations. You say that the Marquis Manor colluded with demons. Do you have proof? Qin Hui proudly said, although it's unclear, it's baseless. Miss Zhao sneered. If it's baseless, how can a world be convinced? Hearing this, Qin Hui's face suddenly showed incomparable malice. This Qin's abilities are limited. I hate that I can't catch this demon and torture it to find out who ordered it. But since this Qin is the Imperial Envoy handling this case, I naturally have to truthfully report all the clues to the Imperial Court. Everything that happened today, together with all the suspicious areas, this Qin will naturally truthfully report to the Imperial Court. Whether or not the Marquis Jinggan Fu is suspicious, whether or not they are innocent, that will depend on His Majesty's intentions. Zhao Feihuang's body trembled. She was intelligent and intelligent, instantly understanding the crux of this matter. She coldly said, shameless. The Imperial Envoy received the Emperor's trust and had the right to directly report and remonstrate. His opinion could even affect the Emperor's decisions. What happened with the Marquis Jinggan Fu? Didn't that still depend on what he said? As long as he slightly embellished some matters and emphasized a few things, it would naturally lead to the Emperor's views and intentions for a civil official. This matter was too simple. Qin Hui looked up to the sky and laughed. Miss Zhao, if you had acted properly, sat upright, and didn't play these little tricks, this Qin wouldn't have had any other way. You can only blame yourself. Today, this Qin will give you a piece of advice. Either you suddenly act ruthlessly and decisively, killing all of this Qin's people in this Marquis Manor and silencing all of them to prevent future trouble. Afterwards, you can ask for punishment from the Imperial Court and push all the blame onto that demon, ending everything once and for all. If you don't, he smiled, then be frank and tell me everything about the demonic artifact, the cause and effect of the matter. Don't pretend to be sick and don't purposely faint again. This official can endure, but my court's laws can't. If you dare to delay like this, be careful that I report this to His Majesty in exchange for a decisive imperial edict. If you pretend to be sick, the imperial physician will come and treat you. If you can't walk, someone will carry you to court. And you evil servants, do you think that by pretending to be crazy and acting dumb, you can deal with the questioning? When the time comes, under San Mu's heavy punishment, let's see how long you can keep your mouth shut. At this moment, he felt proud and elated. Qin Hui looked disdainfully at the scene, feeling that he had imperial power and was majestic. He looked at Miss Zhao's angry face that carried a trace of fear as she forced herself to remain calm. He looked at the fearful and reverent faces of the other people in the Marquis Manor. For a moment, he felt incomparably carefree. This was the taste of power. How wonderful! It was to the point that he almost forgot the extraordinary humiliation he had just suffered. Even if it was a bad thing, it could be turned into a good thing. Now, he had to take back the initiative and force Zhao Feihuang to lower her head. Then, he could divide the temptation and disintegrate the hearts of the people in her manner. He could find evidence and, at the same time, contact Mingzhou's prefectural city. That demon couldn't be left alive. And who Shoshin? Using multiple methods, he would solve all these problems together. At this moment, a steward suddenly rushed out from the crowd with a shocked expression. He came to Ms. Zhao's side and whispered a few words. Zhao Feihuang's eyes suddenly widened. Then, an expression of shock, realization, disbelief, and disdain appeared on her pretty face. She looked at the imperial envoy, her gaze gradually becoming playful. The imperial envoy felt that something was wrong and snorted. "Miss Zhao, what else do you have to say?" Zhao Feihuang smiled, her smile full of ridicule. Such a glib tongue, such a great imperial envoy. As expected of the word official, what you say makes sense, and what you say makes sense. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, this young girl really wouldn't believe that Lord Qin could spout such nonsense with his eyes open. Propriety, justice, integrity, shame, and trust you really have cultivated to perfection. Qin Hui frowned and said, "What conspiracy do you have now?" "Conspiracy?" Zhao Feihuang was so angry that she laughed. That demon was summoned by the Marquis of Jing'an's manor. It was clearly Imperial Envoy Darren who provoked it on the canal. You actually put the blame on the Marquis manor and framed us. I have never seen such a shameless person. Chapter 362. I have never seen such a shameless person. Following this righteous and angry rebuke, everyone's gazes turned back to Qin Hui. The eyes of everyone in the Marquis Fu were filled with bewilderment, as if they had grasped onto a life-saving straw. They seemed to have heard a turning point in the matter from eldest Mrs. words. And the expressions of the Imperial Envoy guards were a bit strange. They had all heard the Imperial Envoy's rebuke. The guards were all experienced civil servants. Basically, when Qin Darren pouted, they knew what kind of shit he was spitting out. Qin Darren clearly wanted to use this as a pretext to make a fuss and push the blame away. He wanted to draw a clear line between himself and the demon's attack and directly let Marquis Jing'an Fu take the blame. After all, when the Imperial Envoy was fishing in the canal, he inexplicably provoked a great demon that had cultivated into a spirit and was chased away in such a sorry state. He fled all the way to Mingzhou and was even beaten up and hung on a flagpole when he entered the Marquis Fu. If this matter was spread to the court, he would end up with the evaluation of creating trouble out of nothing and being unable to take on important responsibilities. To be able to turn a small matter into a small matter and attribute it all to Marquis Jing'an Fu's scheme, that would be very good. Therefore, even though they felt that this matter was somewhat shameless, but in the ups and downs of the officialdom, the principle was that it was better to kill friends than to kill oneself. Although Miss Zhao was beautiful, compared to their own black gauze hat, she was not worth mentioning. They were all members of the Imperial Envoy Guards and could be considered to be one with honor and disgrace. If Qin Darren pushed the blame away, everyone would be spared from the crime of incompetence and provoking the demon. Wouldn't that be perfect? So they heard it, but they hesitated and pretended not to hear it. In any case, Qin Darren's rank was the highest. Since he had decided, everyone could only comply. So at this very moment, after Ms. Zhao heard the steward's whisper, her aura immediately surged and she angrily rebuked. It was clear that she had grasped some sort of key point. The hearts of the Imperial Envoy Guards began to beat a retreat, and their gazes became erratic. Hushoshin sighed softly and took 2 steps back. Standing in the darkness, no one could clearly see his expression. At this time, Qin Hui's heart also thumped. He faintly felt that something was not right. However, he had cultivated his face to perfection. Without a change in expression, he coldly said, "Does Miss Zhao want to add the crime of insulting the Imperial Envoy?" Miss Zhao coldly said, Lord Qin, you are distorting the truth, creating something out of nothing, and wantonly framing the loyal. You disregard the law of the country and His Majesty as if they are nothing. How can such a treacherous official be fit to be an imperial envoy and patrol on behalf of the heavens? Qin Hui shook her sleeves. Hysterical. What a joke. Zhao Feihuang had a cold expression and ignored the imperial envoy's disdain, slowly saying, "The demons that attacked the Marquis Fu tonight have nothing to do with the Marquis of Jinggan Fu, but it has a lot to do with Imperial Envoy Darren. Just now, my steward reported something. He said that when he was commanding the rescue of your subordinates, he once heard a sir collapse and shout, 'Why is that monster here again?' Sir, I don't understand. How do you explain the word again? Could it be that you've seen this monster before?" Qin Hui said coldly, "Who doesn't know how to fabricate facts? Whoever heard it, stand out. Whoever you heard it from, shout them out and confront them face to face. How about it?" Zhao Feihuang faintly sneered. "Imperial Envoy Darren is so powerful. I think that even if you identify the witnesses, they wouldn't dare to speak the truth. But it's fine. In order to protect ourselves, the Marquis Fu has eyes and ears in Mingzhou. Imperial Envoy Darren arrived yesterday, but we didn't discover any signs of Imperial envoys entering the city. May I ask, how did Imperial Envoy Darren get here?" Qin Hui snorted. "Why should this official answer your question? I am the Imperial Envoy. Only I have the right to ask you questions. You don't have the right to ask me questions." The harsher the Imperial Envoy Darren's voice was, the calmer the smile on Miss Zhao's face became. "Then I won't ask, and will speak directly. Yesterday morning, the guards at the gate revealed that two disheveled knights had entered the city on horseback, shouting that they had urgent documents. However, the two who had barged in did not go to the Mingzhou government office or the headquarters of the military headquarters. Instead, they went straight to the Loyalty Tower. Could it be that the imperial court had a transfer order for Commander Hu? Immediately after, the rangers of the Zhongyi Tower went out in all directions. With the south gate of Mingzhou as the center, they fanned out in search. Yesterday, in twos and threes, the rangers escorted a few battered and exhausted friends back to the Zhongyi Tower. It is said that these people's appearances are somewhat similar to those of the imperial envoys." Speaking to this point, her expression was cold. She cupped her hands and said, "Imperial Envoy Darren is truly deeply entrusted by the Emperor. You work diligently. Not only do you not make a show of ostentation, you have taken great pains to use such an ingenious method to secretly enter the city just to give me a surprise attack. Truly admirable." The Imperial Envoy snorted coldly and didn't say anything. Miss Zhao continued, "The Empire is founded on martial prowess. The mighty army that has been through hundreds of battles is the best in the world. The military system of the 6 armies is extremely perfect. It is because of this that I discovered something very strange. Unexpectedly, the fine horses that the esteemed officials rode here belonged to Thriving Martial Manor. The horses' hooves were branded with the seal of Thriving Martial Manor's prefectural army. It should be known that Thriving Martial Manor was quite far from Mingzhou City. Why would the esteemed imperial envoy disembark from the faster and more comfortable canal at Thriving Martial Manor and even borrow the military horses of the local garrison instead? And why are you in such a sorry state all the way here? What is the reason? The more I think about it, the more curious and worried I am." Qin Hui's expression was already somewhat unsightly. Zhao Feihuang smiled faintly, but her smile was incomparably cold. "I have long hair and short knowledge. I don't understand the imperial envoy's intentions. I thought that you met with some mishap on the way, so I was worried and wanted to contribute to the imperial envoy. Thus, I sent capable men to the south to investigate. They followed the canal all the way down and split into 3 groups. The first group followed a section of Thriving Martial Manor's canal to investigate, specifically asking the farmers on both sides if anything strange had happened on the canal that day. The second group visited the relay stations along the way to ask if there were any nobles who had stayed there. The third group headed directly to thriving Marshall Manor to inquire if there were any signs that the manor had deployed troops. And in the evening, the first group of men and horses returned, bringing with them important information. Imperial envoy, you fled down the canal in a panic near thriving Marshall Manor. When a wind and clouds surged on the heavenly river, your ship was forcibly broken and you all fled in a sorry state. All of this was clearly seen by the farmers nearby. When I received the news, I thought that you, Imperial envoy, had encountered a plot to assassinate you and didn't know what to say. I didn't expect that you had provoked a demon yourself. And now, you're still so brazen and shameless, wanting to push this black pot onto the Marquis Fu's head. You're simply shameless to the extreme. When she said this, her gaze was already as sharp as a knife. She looked at Lord Sheen and said sternly, "This is the heavenly law that protects the loyal and upright. This chess piece that I casually placed became the proof of the Marquis Fu's innocence. The remaining 2 groups of men and horses will return within a few days. Whether this demon was provoked by Imperial envoy or arranged by Marquis Jingon Fu, when the time comes, the evidence will be irrefutable and the answer will be clear. Lord Sheen, you don't cultivate virtue and act recklessly. How can the Empire's laws tolerate you? When the time comes, I will definitely report this matter to the higher-ups and accuse you of abusing your power, framing the loyal and upright, neglecting your duties, and acting recklessly in deceiving the monarch." These words seemed to chisel into Qin Hui's heart. His expression changed slightly. "Zhao Feihuang, you shut up. Shameless, treacherous official." Zhao Feihuang shouted sternly. "The Marquis Fu's entire family is loyal and brave. My father and brother sacrificed their lives for this calamity. Although Zhao Feihuang is a woman, I don't dare to disgrace my ancestors. Today, Qin Hui, you framed the Marquis Fu and insulted my Zhao family's reputation. You are the Marquis Fu's mortal enemy. Even if I become a malicious spirit, I will definitely return from the underworld to attack you. Whatever methods you have, just use them. For the sake of protecting the country, the Marquis Fu's men have all died. If one more Zhao Feihuang dies, it doesn't mean much. You have a way to silence people. You have a way to deceive the monarch. Do you have a way to block the mouths of the people in the world?" She turned around, raised her arm, and called out loudly, "Everyone in the Marquis Fu, listen to my orders. You are nominally the stewards and servants of the Marquis Fu, but in reality, you are all my uncles, aunts, elders, and brothers. If the Marquis Fu cannot avoid this calamity, please leave as soon as possible. Only remember one thing. You must spread the truth of this matter. Spread the truth of my Zhao family's injustice and the truth of this matter. Even if the injustice can't be cleared in a short period of time, but in 10 or 100 years, when this treacherous official is made to kneel on the subway and receive eternal infamy, all the bad things he has done, all the people he has wronged, will definitely receive the final redress." When she finished speaking, her eyes revealed a look of hatred. She pointed at Qin Hui and said loudly, 2 days ago, when this person was taking a boat north on the canal, he did not cultivate virtue. He was unrestrained. He defiled and played with fish. He was deranged and disgusting to the extreme. He unintentionally angered a great demon of the Water Clan that was passing by. Not only did he not feel ashamed, he also did not apologize. He even used his status as an imperial envoy to oppress people, to the extent that the demon was angered and its false dignity collapsed. This person was chased to the shore in a sorry state. He ran all the way and entered Mingzhou City in a panic. Under the protection of Master Hu's wings, his fear lessened and his arrogance returned. During the day in the Marquis Fu, he acted tyrannically and demanded bribes. He bullied the elderly, women, and children of the Marquis Fu. At night, that demon chased after him to seek revenge. He was actually deranged and tried to push the blame onto the Marquis Fu. How shameless! Everyone, please bear in mind that this is the truth. 70% of what she said was false, But this level of nonsense would not make Qin Hui overly suspicious. He would think in his heart, F***CK, this little bitch actually guessed the main truth by accident, and not, why does this woman know everything that happened on the boat? At this moment, although Qin Hui had a vague feeling that something was wrong, he was not in the mood to think about it carefully, because F***CK. He was so angry, so angry, so angry. The amount of information contained in these words, the twists of the plot, the heavy taste, the gimmick, the human nature, and the reversal were so much more explosive than the original version. It was obvious that the speed of transmission was fast and the lethality was great. Anyway, when Qin Hui heard the words, he almost blacked out and was about to explode in anger. F***CK. What do you mean I defiled and played with fish? How defiled? For a moment, he was dizzy and did not know what to do. He felt that everyone's eyes were on his lower body. For a scholar with a sense of honor, this was simply a great humiliation. Moreover, with Lord Qin's personality, if this kind of rumor spread out, it would be a stain on his life. His future in the officialdom was over. He roared, Zhao Fei Huang, don't slander me. You're the one who slandered me. Zhao Fei Huang said harshly, tomorrow morning, I'll go to the Yamen in Mingzhou and announce your conspiracy and face to the world. If His Excellency can impeach you, then I'll go to the capital and defend myself in front of the palace. I'll kill myself on the Jade Steps and seek justice for my father and brother, and for my family's reputation. You shameless, treacherous official. Treacherous official. When the agitated young mistress Zhao said this, her face turned pale. She painfully clutched her chest and fell powerlessly into Su Qingwan's arms like a swan with broken wings. Su Qingwan's face was pale with fright. She cried out, Eldest mistress! Eldest mistress! After Zhao Fei Huang's explanation, the people of the Marquis Manor already understood the truth of the matter. They all looked at the imperial envoy with eyes full of hatred. If it weren't for the fact that they were wary of the imperial power that the other party represented, those with violent tempers would have already rushed forward and killed this bastard who wanted to harm the Marquis Manor. At this moment, young Mistress Zhao, fainting again, was the last straw that broke the camel's back. It was like a spark that set the prairie ablaze, completely igniting the people's anger. The people of the Marquis Manor silently surrounded, blocking the eldest young mistress and closing in on the imperial envoy guards. Even though most of them didn't know martial arts, the anger in their eyes and that silent aura were enough to shake the hearts of the imperial envoy guards who had ulterior motives. Qin Hui gazed at young mistress Zhao, who had suddenly fainted. She was first stunned, then she was so angry that she couldn't even speak. Mother of asterisk. Every time she finished saying what she wanted to say and took the advantage and initiative before fainting. The timing of your fainting was too accurate. This little slut, even though he gritted his teeth, an open conspiracy was an open conspiracy. Even though the imperial envoy clearly knew that Zhao Fei Huang was pretending to faint again, at this moment, no matter what he said or did, it was useless and had no value. The people of Marquis Jingan Fu no longer cared about what he said or did. Even if he pointed out the truth, no one would believe him. Even if he had a way to prove that Zhao Fei Huang was faking fainting, these people would definitely not allow him to take one step closer to Zhao Fei Huang. At this moment, it was as if young Mistress Zhao had interrupted Qin Daren's skills and used a series of moves that could swallow mountains and rivers. Just as he was reinvigorating himself and planning to get back at her, he discovered that the other party had taken advantage of him and immediately decisively chose to go offline. Speaking logically, the imperial envoy felt as if his fist had landed on cotton. The sullenness in his heart couldn't be described with words. But very quickly, he discovered that the problem he was facing now was not this. Instead, it was the angry people around him and the storm that would soon arrive. Young Mistress Zhao's counterattack would definitely be fiercer than imagined. It would be enough to kill in one blow. After his anger subsided and his mind calmed down, he finally thought of the serious consequences of this matter. Fear and coldness engulfed his entire body. Involuntarily, he wanted to turn his head and ask Ushoshin for help. But when he thought of this person's suspicious position and actions, he immediately rejected this suggestion. No, he couldn't rely on him. Perhaps this was originally a conspiracy, since they had already shed all pretenses of cordiality. Then he raised his head and looked at the people of the Marquis Fu, letting out a mocking sneer. "It's no use. I am the imperial envoy. His Majesty only listens to me. Your Marquis Jingon Fu will soon be executed to the 3rd generation. All the glory bestowed upon you will be taken back. You won't be able to escape. Your eldest miss also won't be able to escape. No one will be able to escape. This is the law of the imperial court. This is the law of the land. What, you don't accept this? What are you looking at? Why aren't you scrambling back to wait for death? Come, continue to be angry, and be driven by anger, and put into action. Come and attack. Come and attack the imperial envoy." Chapter 363. It had to be said that Qin Darren was indeed quick-witted and could be said to be decisive in killing. In this kind of situation where they were at an extreme disadvantage, using the skill of taunting and crazily pulling aggro was indeed the best way to break out of the situation. Qin Darren's face was filled with disdain and arrogance, but the light in his eyes was as cold as ice. Now that this group of bastards from Marquis Jingon Fu had been tricked by their master and were burning with anger, then he would take advantage of the situation and ignite their anger, making them do something like attacking the imperial envoy guards in their fury. Then the great advantage that Zhao Fei Huang had painstakingly created would be instantly lost. Attacking imperial envoys was a great crime punishable by 9 familial exterminations. Under this premise, any argument and so-called evidence would be nothing more than a last-ditch attempt to defend themselves. When Qin Hui thought of this, the light in his eyes became even sharper, and he continued to add oil to the fire. "Do you know what kind of ending you will end up with? Suddenly, a thunderous roar came from behind him. Enough! It was as if thunder had descended from the heavens above the Marquis Fu. The furious voice exploded in everyone's ears. Ushoshin, who had been silent the entire time, calmly said, "Enough, stop." How could they stop it this time? Qin Hui wanted to continue, but he felt all the hairs on his body stand on end. The gaze from behind him had almost solidified, as if there were bolts of lightning flowing through his body, making his skin feel waves of piercing pain. He clearly felt the anger. Ushoshin's anger had already attracted his imperial army, turning his anger into lightning and sending him a warning. Qin Hui suddenly gritted his teeth, unwillingness and fury flashing through his eyes. This last chance of survival, you also want to take it away? Seeing that the situation was not favorable to Marquis Jingon Fu, you jumped out? What did you do just now? Ushoshin strode past Qin Hui and stood between him and the people of the Marquis Fu. He calmly said, "Today's farce, up until now, is already enough. Everyone, please take a step back for now and cease all banners and drums. Tomorrow, we will make plans. The Imperial Envoy Guards will leave the Marquis Manor and return to the Tower of Loyalty. We will come again tomorrow to give Miss Zhao an explanation and discuss an explanation with the Marquis Manor. That will be all." He said these words to himself, without a tone of discussion. His tone was so matter-of-fact, as if he did not consider the question of whether the Marquis's estate would agree or not. After all, in this farce, he was a neutral party and also an insider who was caught between two sides. What was most laughable was that everything that had happened today, everyone's choices, the subsequent developments, and even his current actions, were all within the calculations of someone. There were absolutely no deviations, no accidents. The situation could only develop in this direction. Everything had to go according to his script. He had truly calculated everything. The things hidden behind this especially made Ushoshin's hair stand on end. Sun Lang had calculated that Qin Hui would frame him, so he had long taught Miss Zhao how to deal with it. Sun Lang had calculated that Qin Hui would fight to the death, but he had also predicted that he would not be able to sit and watch this happen. Sun Lang knew Qin Hui's every action like the back of his hand. This meant one thing. It meant that Sun Lang had a clear understanding of Qin Hui's personality. In other words, his wariness and disdain towards Qin Hui may not be a subjective assumption. Hu Shouxin shivered slightly. Turning his head, he gazed at Qin Hui. His tone was calm and icy. "Let's go, it's getting late. Come back to the Tower of Loyalty with me." The two of them looked at each other, each with their own thoughts. It was as if they were getting to know the person in front of them all over again. A moment later, the Imperial envoy suddenly loosened his jaw. His tone was indifferent as he lowered his head and said, "Yes." Under his orders, the Imperial envoy guards packed up their few belongings from the ruins. In the night wind, under Hu Shouxin's leadership and the angry gazes of the people of the Marquis Fu, they left Marquis Jinggan Fu with complicated feelings. Morale was low, moods were heavy, and some people had already begun to make small calculations. It was very clear that this time, the imperial order to patrol on behalf of the heavens seemed to have been messed up. During the day, they came with their heads held high and their chests puffed out. At night, they left dejectedly. After the people of the Marquis Fu confirmed that the imperial envoy had indeed left, they looked at each other in dismay. Their bravery was blown by the cold wind and gradually cooled down. Looking at the broken walls and ruins, and hearing the imperial envoy's previous clamor, the cowardice in their hearts floated up. They looked at each other in dismay. In a moment, panic and confusion began to spread again. In any case, the stewards had already received instructions and were people with ideas. They immediately split into several groups. First, they sent the eldest miss back to recuperate. Then, they sent the loyal and devoted retainers to begin cleaning up the ruins. They also went to invite a few old servants of virtue and virtue to pacify the people's hearts. They also went to withdraw money from the accounts to distribute it to suppress the shock and at the same time control the spread of the news. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. Zhao Feihuang was carefully sent back to the embroidery building. Su Qingwan put the eldest miss to bed and tucked in the corners of the blankets. Then, she sent away the servant girls. She pushed open the window and listened attentively, wanting to confirm if there was anyone in the surroundings. "There's no need to listen, there's no one." Hearing this voice, Steward Su instinctively turned around and assumed an offensive posture. However, he discovered that Sun Lang had at some point appeared in the room. At this moment, he was sitting boldly in a chair and casually picked up the oranges on the table. A few days ago, the news that the Imperial envoy was coming leaked a little. Quite a few Tom, Dick, and Harry have sent people to keep an eye on this place. Ever since I invited them to gather together and eat some seafood, they've been much more obedient. Although she knew that this bastard's martial arts were extraordinarily high and that the Marquis Fu owed a debt of gratitude to him, every time Su Qingwan saw his sloppy posture, she would remember his previous mischievousness and rudeness. She couldn't help but get angry. Thus, she raised her eyebrows and coldly said, "What's the use of that? The most disobedient person is right in front of me. Right now, the young miss is still in her boudoir. You casually barging in like this." Thus, it was said that men were all wretched bones. These words were probably not wrong. If Steward Su was afraid of his strength or kindness and spoke humbly or respectfully, Sun Lang would certainly feel rather bored. However, now that he was speaking sarcastically and occasionally exploding, that was interesting. After all, it was very interesting to tease this kind of Ice Mountain-type loyal dog and cold beauty. Thus, Sun Lang smiled. He put his hand to his mouth and curled it into the shape of a loudspeaker. He shouted in the direction of the second floor, "Hey, Miss Zhao, I'm going to barge into your boudoir in the middle of the night. Are you going to comply or not?" His voice had just faded when the sound of hurried footsteps came from the second floor. After such a long time together, Miss Zhao had long learned a lot of Sun Lang slang. Her excited voice traveled over. "Roar, roar, roar. Sister Sue, quickly go get me another pillow. Just one pillow is enough. Remember, don't bring a blanket over." Sure enough, Su Qingwan looked like she had been hit hard. She collapsed and shouted, "Miss, Before her voice died away, Zhao Fei Huang had already run down and said to Sun Lang with a smile, Sun Lang, did I act well tonight? Sun Lang nodded and praised. Perfect. The Empire owes you an Oscar. Hearing this, Miss Zhao's face was like 100 flowers blooming. She smiled and opened her arms to Sun Lang. Then why don't you hug me? Sun Lang said as if nothing had happened. Hug her. As soon as his voice fell, Steward Su, like a hen protecting its chicks, rushed up and firmly hugged Miss Zhao, who was striding toward the road of dehydration and contraction. Miss, you can't. Let go of me. I haven't married you yet. Sister Su, do you already treat Sun Lang as your master? How bold and cunning. How dare you run away? Who treats that kind of person as their master? Miss, you're teasing me again. To Miss Zhao's disappointment, she did not get Sun Lang's hug in the end. However, she had indeed achieved a great victory today and had almost established a decisive advantage. This was enough to be worth celebrating. She stretched lazily and chuckled. After the Imperial envoy provoked the monster, he tried to frame me and frame me, framing the loyal. During the day, he even ordered his subordinates to beat people in the Marquis mansion and show off his power. Tomorrow, I will hit the drum and go to the magistrate's office to complain. Since the master is not part of the Tianyuan faction, and he has a very strong backer, he will definitely file a fierce complaint when he comes across this kind of matter where he can directly remonstrate and not be afraid of power to gain a clean name. The people also need to act. First, he will send idle people everywhere to spread the news. The newspaper run by Zhang Jinyuan also lacks a big explosive news to make a good start. In short, we also need to win the sympathy of the people. This should be the advantage of public opinion that Sun Lang talked about. The girl looked at Sun Lang with a mixture of admiration and adoration. She smiled and said, It's really a perfect plan that is closely linked and advanced step by step. Sun Lang didn't show up from beginning to end and was able to do this. Su Qingwan also admired him in her heart, but for some reason, she didn't want to praise the man in front of her. She wouldn't shamelessly praise him like Miss Zhao. She snorted and said, But everyone in Marquis' mansion is kept in the dark. These 2 days, they've all been frightened. Especially tonight. Who knows how many people won't be able to sleep? You've caused too much of a ruckus. Speaking to this point, Housekeeper Sue's gaze was somewhat suspicious. Also, I heard you caused a big ruckus on the canal and chased the Imperial envoy for a day and a night. From the ruckus you caused tonight, I know how you tormented the Imperial envoy before. I keep feeling that your goal is not so pure. Don't tell me you're also playing around? Sun Lang said proudly. Humph. Using a woman's heart to measure the heart of a gentleman. Am I the kind of person who uses public tools for personal use? If I didn't make them jittery at the slightest sound and treat every bush and tree like an enemy and give them a heavy psychological shadow, would I be able to make their morale fall to the bottom and allow Miss Zhao to succeed in one strike? As for the matter of everyone in the Marquis' mansion being frightened, he shook his head. This is a necessary process. What do you think the Marquis' mansion has committed? Privately hiding a demonic weapon is a great crime. Once this is done, it is done. It will forever be an inner demon, forever a ticking time bomb. Even if it doesn't explode right now, it will still be a huge hidden worry. If it suddenly explodes one day, the Marquis' mansion will be finished. If you want to remove this bomb, if you want to completely resolve this matter, if you want your enemies to never be able to use this matter again, then you must experience turmoil and pain. Therefore, this matter has to be blown up. It has to be made into an uproar. It has to let everyone know that the Marquis' mansion has been wronged. It has to let everyone form this kind of impression and view. At that time, the truth will not be important. Su Qingwan bit her lips and slowly nodded. She had to admit that what Sun Lang said was very reasonable. Miss Zhao also agreed. She nodded with a smile. That's right. Leave everything to Sun Lang. As for the fluctuation in the hearts of the people caused by the turmoil in the Marquis' mansion, it is actually not a bad thing. Only at such a critical juncture can one see who is trustworthy and who is not loyal. At such a critical juncture, the hearts of people will be completely exposed. It is also not a bad thing. Speaking to hear, a cold light flashed in her eyes. Although she was like an innocent and obedient child in front of Sun Lang. But this young miss had no choice but to come into contact with the darkness of the real world of the Marquis's mansion since she was in her teenage years. Moreover, she had obtained the power to protect herself from countless ugly schemes and malice. She had never been a naive and kind person. Housekeeper Su saw the look in Zhao Feihuang's eyes and could not help but shiver. Every time the young miss revealed such a look, it meant that she was going to use schemes and schemes as a weapon to eliminate one potential enemy after another, or exile, or imprison, or even directly disappear. In these years, too many people have been sorted out and cleaned up in this way, in exchange for the peace of the Marquis's mansion and the insomnia of the young miss for several days, or even several months. This was never a simple decision, but in this world, there were some things that must be done. She sighed in her heart. But such a matter, when would it end? I think it's better to forget about it. Suddenly, she heard such a voice. It was not hers, nor was it the young Miss's voice. The voice came from the mouth of that mischievous fellow who had a vile personality and enjoyed watching and creating great dramas. That was why it was very strange. With his personality, he could not wait to make the matter as big as possible. Why did he instead come to persuade the young miss? Did this fellow take the wrong medicine? Su Qingwan raised her head in surprise, glancing at Sun Lang. Zhao Feihuang also used the same strange expression to look at the person of his dreams. Sun Lang smiled. I think it's better not to casually test people's hearts. Everyone has their own selfish motives, and absolute loyalty is too little. Sometimes it's best to be confused. If you get to the bottom of everything, you will always hurt yourself. So Miss Zhao, let nature take its course. Don't deliberately test and add fuel to the fire. Otherwise, you will be even more sad. Zhao Feihuang seemed to understand, but still agreed. Since Sun Lang has said so, then forget it. After all, compared to Sun Lang, the so-called loyalty test was really a trivial matter. Her tone was a little worried. But Sun Lang, why did you suddenly say such words? It's just a little realization of life. Sun Lang smiled. Because of what happened tonight, I was a little touched by the scenery and thought of some things in the past, so I was a little emotional, alas. Old who? Chapter 364. Under Hu Shouxin's lead, the Imperial Envoy's group of people dejectedly returned to Zhongyi Tower. The ranger on duty came up to greet them. Hu Shouxin tiredly waved his hand and had him take everyone to the second floor to rest. Qin Hui observed the situation and silently followed behind Hu Huaishou to the third floor. Following Hu Shouxin into the room, Qin Hui turned his hand and closed the door. Without saying anything, he directly knelt on the ground. If this situation was seen by Sun Lang, he would definitely imagine at least 2,000 words of a gay atmosphere. However, Hu Shouxin was not so depraved. Old Hu lit the lamp and turned his head to look at Qin Hui. He coldly said, "Good trick, Sir Qin. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I really couldn't imagine that those words came from your mouth. What you've learned in the court these few years is to frame others in a crisis to protect yourself." Qin Hui knelt on the ground with his head lowered. "I have nothing to say." Hu Shouxin's expression froze. He felt that the anger in his chest had landed on empty air. If Qin Hui had tried to quibble or be confident, then Hu Shouxin would have scolded the imperial envoy angrily and even given him a beating. However, Qin Hui had put on a cowardly appearance of lying down and allowing him to do whatever he wanted. On the contrary, Old Hu didn't know what to do. He froze for a moment. Most of his anger had died down, but he still said coldly, "Nothing to say? You said a lot at the time." Qin Hui raised his head and revealed a bitter smile. In a quiet voice, he said, "I won't defend myself. I just want to ask, if you were in my position, what would you do?" Old Hu was slightly startled, and his expression became unnatural. Qin Hui said in a low voice, "I, your younger brother, have struggled bitterly in the court these few years. I've suffered hardships and been bullied. I've waited with great difficulty for this opportunity to stand out. I've counted on the Emperor's heart and wanted to do this job beautifully. I didn't expect to encounter such a situation. He looked straight into Hu Shoshin's eyes. His expression was calm, and his tone was indifferent. However, old Hu could see the huge waves in the depths of his eyes. The imperial envoy calmly said, "Because I don't have my brother's martial arts and abilities, even if I bowed and bent my knees on the canal, even if I was refined and courteous, I still deserve to be humiliated by a monster." I ran away in panic and almost lost my life. I was even followed by that monster and hung on the flagpole. It's only because I don't have an intelligent and eloquent eloquence. I don't have the mind to anticipate the enemy's moves, and I don't have the ability to see through the hearts of people. So I was restrained in every aspect in the Marquis estate, bullied by Zhao Fei Huang, looked down upon by the group of servants, and even made a fool of myself tonight, showing all sorts of ugly behaviors and becoming a heinous criminal that deceives the monarch. It's only because I don't have outstanding military achievements, an illustrious family background, or good relations with people that even if I became an imperial envoy, I would be the lowest ranking one. Investigations could only be carried out in secret, and I didn't have much power in my hands. As a result, along the way, there were endless accidents. I couldn't even guarantee my own safety. He continued to kneel on the ground like this with his head raised. Gazing at Hu Shoshin, his tone was still calm. Brother blamed me for being bossy, domineering, and ruthless today. However, if you ask me, this isn't being ruthless or being bossy. This is just... Qin Hui smiled, but there was not a trace of smile in his eyes. He stared at old Hu and said word by word, "It is. Dog. Anxious. Over. Wall." Gazing at Qin Hui's icy gaze, Hu Shoshin suddenly shivered. However, the imperial envoy continued to speak. The speed of his words increased as if he could not hide the excitement in his heart. Bossy and domineering? Why do I have to be bossy and domineering? I cherish this imperial order and am careful everywhere. When I meet a monster, I have to be courteous. How can I be bossy and domineering? I'm being ruthless? Brother, you accompanied me to the Marquis Manor. In this day, did you hear me say anything ruthless? If it wasn't for Zhao Fei Huang being so overbearing today, why would I be so anxious after being attacked by a monster? I was afraid. He seemed to remember the situation during the day and said with grief and indignation, "She already did such a thing during the day. If this kind of weakness falls into her hands, I'm finished. Since it's like this, why can't I strike first to gain the initiative?" I also didn't want to directly report to the Emperor that I killed her entire family. I only used this matter to make a fuss and scare her. Who knew it would turn out like this? As he spoke, he sighed and said wearily, "In any case, it's too late to say anything now. I am indeed wrong in many ways, but there is one thing that is stuck in my throat. If I don't spit it out, I won't be happy. Brother, in this kind of situation, this kind of matter, if it were you, what would you do? I just can't accept it." He lowered his head, and there were a few more drops of water on the ground. Qin Hui held back her tears and said softly, "Why is it that as an imperial envoy, Xiong Heir can ride a horse in fine clothes and can wear black armor to accompany him? I carefully planned this job, but I was restrained in every way. I clearly didn't do anything wrong, but I was bullied by a monster. I clearly didn't do anything, but I was targeted by Zhao Fei Huang. I am an imperial envoy, but I was hung on a flagpole by a monster and treated as a joke by others. My desperate counterattack was easily resolved by the other party, and instead became my fatal weakness." The more he spoke, the more hopeless he felt. He fell to the ground wearily, and his eyes were empty. Suddenly, he laughed crazily. "However, I actually deserve it. I don't have the ability, I don't have the family background, I don't have the connections, so I can't move an inch in the court. So I can't even do a job well. I was too naive. In this world, in this country, it is too naive to rely on so-called hot blood to realize one's ideals and ambitions. In the end, I can't be a bad person. I can't be a bad person. In the end, I can't be an official." He sighed, his face ashen. He slowly stood up, bowed to Hu Shoshin, and then turned to leave. Hu Shoshin said coldly. Where are you going? Qin Hui laughed bitterly. Taking the initiative to ask for forgiveness is better than being accused. I don't want to implicate my family. Moreover, that Zhao Feihuang's hostility is too strong. He must be guilty. That monster acted recklessly and disregarded the dignity of court. This means that the demon race has been acting strangely recently. Even if I'm removed from my position and never hired again, I can't let these two get away with it. He shook his head and slowly said, I had too many misgivings in the past. I felt that if I reported the matter of the demonic beasts, I would be judged as a troublemaker in the imperial court. Now that the outcome has been decided, I can finally explain the cause and effect of the matter and let the imperial court judge. As an official, I have to tell the truth in the end. After he finished speaking, his hand was already on the door. The door had just opened a crack when Hu Shoshin's voice came from behind him. Stop. Qin Hui's body froze slightly. He didn't turn around. He smiled bitterly and said, Brother, what else do you have to say? Hu Shoshin slowly said, What did I say before? Tomorrow, we'll go to the Marquis Manor again and give Miss Zhao an explanation and discuss a plan. Are you going to treat my words as nothing? Qin Hui still had his back to Hu Shoshin. He shook his head. The evidence of the monster, the evidence of the guards hitting people, and the evidence of me tonight have all fallen into Zhao Feihuang's hands. The situation is already as bad as it can get. As long as she goes to the Yamen tomorrow to sound the drum and cry out her grievances, my reputation will never be cleared. If I want her to be merciful, I can only compromise with her. Whatever she wants me to say, I'll say it. Whatever she wants me to do, I'll do it. After all, I am an imperial envoy carrying the emperor's trust to investigate a case. How can I deceive the emperor and be coerced by others? He turned his head. Although the expression on his face was still dejected, a bright light flashed through his eyes. He decisively said, Even if I have been schemed against by her and lost my official position, the truth is the truth. The court's suspicion of her will not end. There will still be a new imperial envoy coming. If she is innocent, then that is fine. As long as she has done something wrong, there will be a day when she will be exposed. Even if I am fired to the end and go home to farm, I will wait day and night for the day when the truth comes out. At this moment, Qin Hui was full of righteousness and was unyielding. It seemed that after tonight's earth-shaking change, he had a new understanding. Hu Shoshin's expression was silent. A moment later, he said, If she doesn't coerce you. Qin Hui paused for a moment. He waved his hand and said with a pained smile, I am a useless person. I don't dare to trouble you anymore. If I may be so bold, I'm afraid this matter is not so simple. Since you have already removed your armor and returned to the fields, you should peacefully live your life. Don't get involved in this kind of thing because of me. Hu Shoshin looked at the sincere face of Qin Hui. His heart was unable to calm down for a long time. That's right, the matter of the demon vessel. What was done was done. Even if there were difficulties, Zhao Feihuang could not be said to be innocent. Even if Sun Lang wanted to do everything in his power to wash away Miss Zhao's involvement, he could not use the future of an innocent person as the price. Brother Qin being sent to Mingzhou on official business was originally because of me. How can I sit by and do nothing? He finally made up his mind and calmly said, What if I tell you that this matter has something to do with me? After Qin Hui heard this, he paused. Then his pupils abruptly contracted. He immediately turned around and pulled open the door. Looking left and right, he leaned against the wall and listened for a moment. After confirming that there was no one around, he took a few steps forward and stared fixedly into Hu Shoshin's eyes. Using a suppressed, angry tone, he said in a low voice, What did brother say? Hu Shoshin calmly looked at him. If I say that the matter of the demon vessel in Marquis Jingan Fu has something to do with me, what would brother Qin do? Qin Hui took 2 steps back. Confusion and disbelief flashed through his eyes. He pointed at Hu Shoshin, his finger trembling. He bitterly lamented, Brother, since you have already resigned, you should be living out your remaining years in Mingzhou. Why did you touch that thing? You can lose your head for this. Hu Shoshin smiled. What? Does brother want to take my head to receive a reward? Qin Hui's face was conflicted and hesitant. He was so shocked that he did not know what to do. He stomped his feet, and after a while he said, "Brother, why did you say this to me?" Hushoshin smiled slightly and said, "I can't let brother lose his position because of me and ruin his great future." Qin Hui looked at him and suddenly took 2 steps back. He sternly said, "Brother, if you want little brother to feign civility with Marquis Jinggan Fu and deceive the emperor, then you should keep your mouth shut. Since brother has revealed such a secret, then you will definitely drag little brother into this mess. Although little brother is unworthy, I will not go against the emperor's grace. Brother, please take little brother's life. Otherwise, Qin Hui will definitely report this matter to the court and investigate thoroughly. Then brother will be sent to the Ministry of Justice's main hall." Hushoshin continued to smile. "Then brother wants me to go die?" Qin Hui's eyes struggled. In the end, he gritted his teeth and lowered his head. "It is my duty, and the emperor's orders cannot be disobeyed. After completing his majesty's task, little brother will definitely cut off his neck and commit suicide to thank brother." Old Hu sighed. "Brother, you are underestimating me. When has this who ever done anything that violates the law?" Qin Hui's face revealed joy, and then he suspiciously asked, "Could it be that there is another secret to this matter?" Hushoshi nodded and sighed. "There is no harm in telling you. Miss Zhao secretly hid a demonic weapon. It is true, but with her courage and identity, she does not dare to have any ideas about the demonic weapon. The reason why she did this was because she was instructed by someone else. That person's identity is very frightening and very subtle. So much so that if it was leaked, it would cause a reign of terror in the court." Qin Hui was confused. "Who is it?" Hushoshin turned around and looked at the imperial envoy in front of him. His tone was calm. "Empress Tensei." His voice was extremely soft, but it was like a clap of thunder that exploded in Qin Hui's ears. The imperial envoy widened his eyes in disbelief. His face was filled with shock, and then it turned into anger. This is simply treason." Hushoshin sighed. "Normally, if I found out that someone was secretly hiding a demonic weapon, there would be no need for the court to send people. I would personally escort the criminal to the court. However, this matter involves a wide range of people and has a great influence. It's simply shocking. I can only think of a way to suppress this matter and then slowly plan. Brother, you are a scholar and also an official of the court. Your knowledge and experience must be much better than mine. Do you think that you should directly report this matter to the court?" Qin Hui shook his head. "Of course not. Empress Tensei is deeply favored by His Majesty and holds great power. His disciples and officials are all over the 9 states of the empire. He is also a strong competitor for the throne. If we rashly report and expose this matter, we are bound to suffer a thunderous blow. It may even shake the foundation of the country and cause chaos in the court." He revealed an expression of understanding. He looked at Hushoshin and said excitedly, "Is that why you intervened?" "No. With your cautious nature, you would definitely not act rashly. You must have gathered your old brother from the past and discussed this matter together to eliminate this hidden danger for the country, right?" A strange light flashed through Old Hu's eyes. He shook his head and said no. "Up until now, I have been considering and planning. After all, this matter involves too many people. I don't know who to believe, and I am also afraid of implicating other brothers. It was only when you came that I realized that this matter could not be hidden any longer. After all, there have been too many accidents." Only then did Qin Hui let out a huge sigh of relief. He bowed deeply and said, "Brother, you have taken a huge risk by telling me the truth. I will definitely not let you down. However, this matter involves too many people. I will be presumptuous this time and ask you to show me evidence. Once it is confirmed that this matter is indeed related to Empress Tensei, I will follow your orders." The imperial envoy spoke so generously. However, a strange expression appeared on his face that was facing the ground and could not be seen by Old Hu. However, Hushoshin could not see Qin Hui's expression at this time. This also meant that Qin Hui could not see Hushoshin's expression. The imperial envoy naturally did not know that in old Hu's gaze, there were also some things that he would never have thought of. Hu Shoshin sighed silently. Sigh, Sun Lang. Sun Lang, the human heart you speak of, let's wait and see. He helped Qin Hui up. Chapter 365. Late at night, Qin Hui finally came down from the third floor and returned to his room. As soon as he closed the door, a satisfied smile involuntarily appeared on his face. It was as if he had obtained something precious and his tense emotions had been relieved. Flag-bearer Wan Yuanzhong was very loyal and devoted. He had been staying up all night waiting for the imperial envoy to return. At this moment, he was sitting by the table with his hand supporting his head, dozing off. Hearing the noise, he immediately woke up. Raising his head, he saw the imperial envoy's incomparably relaxed and refreshed appearance. The flag-bearer immediately shivered and felt his vision turn green. Shock and sadness flashed through his eyes. Sir, Qin Hui naturally didn't know what his loyal subordinate and close friend was thinking at this moment. Hearing this, he asked curiously, Brother Yuanzhong, what's wrong? Wan Yuanzhong stuttered, You've been gone for so long. Do you want to take a bath? What did he mean? Qin Hui was baffled. Logically speaking, she did not have a small opinion of this flag-bearer. Although it was definitely an unintentional mistake, this man's incessant blabbering was often accompanied by frightening things. To be honest, it was indeed quite distasteful. However, he had encountered a good thing tonight and was in need of people, so he couldn't care about these small details. Wan Yuanzhong clearly interpreted Qin Hui's silence to have another layer of meaning. His expression became even more sorrowful and angry. Sir, you've worked hard. I didn't think that Hu Shoshin, a great general of Tianyuan, would... you may know a person for a long time without understanding his heart. Qin Hui didn't understand what he meant and waved his hand with a smile. It's not hard, not hard. That brother of mine is really a loyal brother. He's so good to me that I have nothing to say. If I had known this matter would go so smoothly, I wouldn't have bumped into it myself. Wouldn't it have been fine if I had directly gone to find my brother? Wan Yuanzhong seemed to be unable to take the blow and took 2 steps back in shock. He cried out involuntarily, Brother, even if you don't think for yourself, you have to think for the continuity of the Qin family. The imperial envoy was startled and then straightened his clothes. Bowing deeply, he said solemnly, Brother's teachings are correct. I was indeed rash tonight. If something were to happen to me, and I made a mistake, wouldn't I be ashamed to face my ancestors? Fortunately, my brother gave me a head-on warning. Head-on warning? How could this idiom be used like that? The big stick that the elders of the temple use to enlighten their disciples is completely different from the stick that your brother Hu uses. Qin Hui had no idea that his image in Wan Yuanzhong's mind had changed drastically in a short period of time. As usual, he took Wan Yuanzhong's hand affectionately and led him to the table. Brother, come, sit down and tell me slowly. You must be scared out of your wits. Don't worry. I was almost scared to death. Logically speaking, the two of them were old friends. They had done things like holding each other's arms and sleeping together many times. Needless to say, they were very familiar with it. Wan Yuanzhong also regarded such actions as close friendship and friendship, which was extremely pure. But at this moment, when Brother Yuanzhong saw that his small hand was firmly held by Brother Qin's big hand, he instantly felt goosebumps all over his body. For a moment, as a straight man, his worldview was fiercely impacted and shaken. Gods and Buddhas, what should I do now? Wan Yuanzhong resisted the fear and confusion in his heart and sat down on the chair, trembling. He sat down firmly and looked like he was going to weld his butt to the chair. His abnormal behavior, in Qin Hui's eyes, was very normal. Tonight, they had been attacked by demons in the manor, and then they had been turned around. The situation could not be any worse. This Imperial Envoy mission was about to be ruined. If it was ruined, he, as an Imperial Envoy, would not end well. The people accompanying him would also not have a good ending. It was normal for people's hearts to waver. Fortunately, he had brought good news, Great news. He patted one Yuanzhong's cold and trembling hand and warmly said, "Brother, there is no need to worry. Since you trust me and follow me, then I will definitely find a glorious future for you. You and I are brothers. In the future, we will shine in court. How can we die here? Even if I have to risk my life, I will not implicate you." Wan Yuanzhong shifted his but slightly and said with tears in his eyes, "Brother, your kindness, I can only repay it in the next life. Ba, Ksidagarba Bodhisattva, if you want to repay me in the next life, you must let me reincarnate as a woman." Qin Hui was startled and said with a smile, "You and I are brothers. Why should we distinguish between each other?" Logically speaking, if a person's first impression was the strongest, it would be awkward to listen to anything. Wan Yuanzhong had not yet recovered from Brother Qin's great sacrifice and was frightened by the frightening words. Why should we distinguish between each other? He tried his best to change the topic. "Brother, what should we do about this? Brother who has already shown me the right path and is willing to help me get out of this difficult situation. However, there are some implications." Qin Hui said apologetically, "I have already promised Brother Hu to keep this a secret, so there are some things that I cannot tell you directly right now. Otherwise, I will break my promise to you. However, brother, don't worry. Once the matter is settled and there are no more worries, I will definitely tell you everything. I will not hide anything. Brother, don't say any more. I seem to have already guessed it." When Yuanzhong nodded forcefully and said emotionally, "Brother, I believe you. Even if you don't tell me, it's fine. I will understand everything." Qin Hui smiled and said, "Yes, indeed. You and I are brothers. We treat each other with sincerity. There are some things that do not need to be said clearly. You only need to remember that my brother is one of us and also our benefactor. That is enough. However, this matter is ultimately top secret. There are some things that require manpower. I have thought about it, and other than Brother Yuanzhong." Before he finished speaking, Wan Yuanzhong quietly broke free from Qin Hui's hand and patted his chest forcefully. "If Brother has any orders, I will obey." Qin Hui nodded and said in a low voice, "There are two important matters. First, something happened tonight. The hearts of the imperial envoys are unstable. I will naturally go and comfort them one by one. However, people's hearts are hard to fathom. Brother, please be careful. Secondly, although this case is generally stable, since we are investigating the case under the imperial decree, the evidence still needs to be more detailed. Therefore, I have something to ask of you, younger brother. Pick some trustworthy subordinates, and when you are free these 2 days, go and find one." The two of them talked for a long time. Wan Yuanzhong nodded and said, "Leave it all to me. I will definitely do it beautifully." The imperial envoy cupped his hands and said, "Then I will rely on you." Wan Yuanzhong hesitated for a moment but still said, "Brother, is this really okay?" Qin Hui smiled and said, "Brother Hu and I are both old soldiers of Tianyuan. We have fought together and treated each other with sincerity. What is there to be worried about?" Wan Yuanzhong said faintly, "People's hearts are easy to change and hard to fathom. Brother, it is better to be careful. Even if we are brothers who went through life and death together, we still need to be careful. Are there few examples of people biting the hand that feeds them? You treat others as brothers. Perhaps one day, someone will suddenly jump out and stab you." Qin Hui's expression changed slightly. He smiled and said, "Brother Yuanzhong, don't talk nonsense. Brother who is righteous and sincere. How could he do such a thing?" Wan Yuanzhong shook his head and said, I'm not only talking about this matter. General who is not the only old soldier of Tianyuan. Brother, you are too gullible and are not prepared at all. Think about it. What if one day, a hero of Tianyuan who has not seen you for a long time suddenly appears? Stop, stop, stop. Qin Hui made a stop motion with his hands. For some reason, he suddenly felt a little weak in his heart, so he decided to end this conversation. It is already late. Brother, you have been waiting here for a long time. You have worked hard for a long time today. You have exhausted your mind and body. Quickly go back to your room and rest. Oh, how about you just rest here? Hearing this, When Yuanzhong jumped up as if his but was on fire. He clasped his hands and said, I will not disturb brother anymore. This younger brother will return his room now. Return his room now. As he said this, he deeply clasped his hands and bowed in farewell. Then he retreated step by step to the door. Opening the door, jumping, closing the door. The entire movement was as smooth as flowing water. Qin Hui was still a little baffled. When did brother Yuanzhong become so courteous? But his expression instantly became gloomy, and he casually flicked the candlelight. Brother Hu, our game could be considered to have begun. You are really a good person who is righteous. A good person. The next morning, under Hu Shouxin's lead, the Imperial Envoy Guards once again paid a visit to Marquis Jinggan Fu. The spectators of the Imperial Envoy Guards were already prepared to sink into the vast ocean of People's War. But what surprised them was that the Marquis Fu was completely calm. The crowd seemed to have received 100 Saint Crystals as compensation. Each and every one of them was calm and peaceful, as if nothing had happened last night. Everything was incomparably quiet and peaceful. Young Lady Zhao did not go to the Yamen to complain. There were also no strange newspapers circulating on the streets. Even the gazes of the servants did not have any hostility. It was the same as before in the reception pavilion. But at this moment, the mood of both sides was completely different. The leader of the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, Qin Hui, met with young Lady Zhao of Marquis Jinggan Fu once again. All unrelated people were chased out. Only young Lady Zhao, housekeeper Su, Hu Shouxin, and Qin Hui remained in the room. Qin Hui was a good man. He could rise and fall and was very straightforward. He directly bowed and said, Last night, this official was like a cornered dog jumping over a wall and spouted nonsense, frightening young Lady Zhao. I am truly ashamed and apologetic. I am ashamed and ashamed. I am ashamed and ashamed. Please punish me. Young Lady Zhao, although his words were very sincere, a trace of sternness flashed across Lord Qin's face. That was an attitude that said, Do not bully a poor youth. Zhao Feihuang immediately returned the favor and also bowed. She pursed her lips and said with a smile, I wouldn't dare, I wouldn't dare. Yesterday, this little girl was unruly and willful. In a moment of desperation, I said the wrong thing. Please forgive me, Lord Imperial Envoy. Please forgive me. I hope Lord Imperial Envoy will not take it to heart. Although her words were very sincere, young Lady Zhao's gaze was like a Best Actress Oscar winner looking at a loser for Best Supporting Actor. Because they were too polite, Qin Hui did not see young Lady Zhao's gaze that was like a high-end gamer's. The two people pretended to be polite. The simple and honest Hu Shouxin and the simple and honest Su Qingwan had strange expressions. They looked like they wanted to vomit, but were too embarrassed to do so. Finally, under Hu Shouxin's suggestion that he could not bear it any longer, the two people finally ended the meaningless pleasantries and sat down as host and guest. Zhao Feihuang was instigated by a certain person again last night and took the initiative to make things difficult. She looked at Hu Shouxin and reproached, Uncle Hu, since Lord Qin is one of us, why didn't you say so earlier? It was so unpleasant yesterday that I almost went to the government office to complain today. Hu Shouxin's expression froze, and he was furious in his heart. Damn it, it was my fault that it was so big yesterday. Was it my fault? Wasn't it all because of you and Sun Lang? Qin Hui was puzzled and asked, Uncle Hu. Old Hu secretly cursed in his heart. On the other side, Zhao Feihuang had already pretended to be shy and said, Yes, I already have someone I like. It's all thanks to Uncle Hu's matchmaking. Qin Hui was surprised and said, Young Lady Zhao is already married? Not yet. Zhao Feihuang covered her face and smiled shyly. But I have already decided that it's him in this life. The Imperial Envoy's mind raced, and he remembered this information in his heart. Following the proper etiquette, he cupped his hands and said, Then I will congratulate you in advance. On the day of the wedding, there will naturally be a congratulatory gift. It would have been fine if he didn't mention this, but once he did, young Lady Zhao's face showed a sad expression. She sighed and said, Wedding? Alas, The concubine is in love, but the husband is heartless. The man I like doesn't care much about marriage. He is free and happy, but I have to stay in the boudoir and feel sorry for myself. Qin Hui was a shrewd person and naturally went with the flow. When she heard this, she said unfairly, "Young Lady Zhao is an immortal. She is educated and reasonable, as beautiful as a fairy, and has such wealth. Whoever marries her will have cultivated 3 lifetimes of good fortune. How can that heartless man do such a thing that will make a beauty sad?" Yes. Young Lady Zhao's eyes lit up as if she had found a confidant. She looked at the imperial envoy and said, "Why don't you help me talk to him?" Qin Hui muttered, "Well." Thoughts and deductions flashed through his mind. Before he came to Mingzhou, he had done his homework. For a marquis like Miss Zhao, her marriage had to be reported to the imperial court. At the very least, he had never seen such information before. In other words, Miss Zhao's sweetheart had appeared out of nowhere. Perhaps this was the key to the demonic weapon case. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he suddenly smiled and said, "There's an ancient saying that it is better to tear down 10 temples than to destroy 1 marriage. On the other hand, if we can make a marriage happen, it is also better than tearing down 10 temples. In that case, this official will wait." Hu Shouxin had been desperately trying to signal Zhao Feihuang with his eyes, but young Lady Zhao had turned a blind eye. Old Hu had no choice but to shout and stop Qin Hui's suicidal behavior before the matter could not be salvaged. "My good brother Qin, you should be more careful. This is a trap, you bastard." He met Brother Qin's surprised gaze and said with a smile, "Young Lady Zhao's lover is not here, so this matter is not urgent. Besides, young Lady Zhao, are you confused? Brother Qin is an outsider after all. Wouldn't it be better if I help you talk to him?" Before young Lady Zhao could speak, Qin Hui said first, That's right. This official is an outsider after all. It is not good for me to interfere in this kind of matter. It is better to leave it to my brother. Young Lady Zhao, let's stop chatting and talk about business. How about it?" Young Lady Zhao was still a bit resentful, but Hu Shouxin said, Yes. Let's talk about business first." Seeing young Lady Zhao's hesitant and unwilling appearance, and seeing Hu Shouxin's unusually positive attitude, as if he was hiding something, Qin Hui calmly took a sip of tea. There was indeed a problem. Chapter 366. In Marquis Jinggan Fu, Qin, Zhao, and Hu, these 3 people were clearly divided into 3 large camps. The kind and lawful Hu Shouxin wanted everyone to be happy. He wanted to end the matter of the demon weapon and protect little brother Qin from Sun Lang's evil clutches. Qin Hui, who was a lawful evil, had an ulterior motive. She wanted to create big news so that she could achieve her long-cherished wish of being promoted and getting rich. The chaotic and evil Zhao Feihuang, under Sun Lang's instigation, wanted to attack Qin Hui, attack the imperial envoy guards, and also attack Hu Shouxin. In short, she wanted to his mother's car and overturn everything. In the process, resolve the hidden danger of Marquis Jinggan Fu. The 3 of them each had their own thoughts. Each of them had something they wanted to hide, and each of them was on guard against each other. Between them, there was not a shred of sincerity. The conversation and meeting in such an atmosphere could not be more fake. Qin Hui kept the conversation in mind and kept the key clue of Miss Zhao's sweetheart in his mind. His intuition told him that this person must be a key figure and he must secretly pay attention to him. Then he revealed a sincere expression and slowly said, "Miss Zhao, my elder brother has already told me about you in detail last night. But you must also understand that this Qin has come here on the orders of the Emperor. I am here to help His Majesty with his errands. The Emperor's orders are hard to disobey, and the Emperor's will is unpredictable. If we want to handle this matter properly, we will need Miss Zhao's cooperation. Let's think of a plan together." Miss Zhao had a smile on her face as she readily agreed. "Since Lord Qin is one of us, then I will definitely do my best to cooperate with Lord Imperial Envoy to clear the house of Marquis's name. Innocent my ass. The corners of Qin Hui's eyes twitched. She then smiled and said, well said, well said. Since that's the case, this official will be bold enough to show off a little and share a little bit of my opinion on this matter. He muttered to himself for a moment, organizing his words and slowly saying, right now in the court, there's a rumor that the Marquis of Jing'an is secretly hiding a demonic weapon. Zhao Feihuang nodded and said seriously, this is obviously a groundless and outrageous slander. Qin Hui looked at Lady Zhao's sacred and inviolable face, and the corners of her eyes twitched. If this woman entered the imperial court and became an official, she could expect to be the prime minister for 30 years. He helplessly nodded. Yes, 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 that was indeed baseless slander and slander. So His Majesty sent me to investigate the truth and give Marquis Jing and Fu justice. In regards to this matter, the explanation given by the Marquis's estate was that extremely ferocious and evil villains entered the Marquis's estate with the intention of plundering it. In the end, it caused great chaos in the Marquis's estate and caused a storm, right? When Zhao Feihuang heard this, her face turned pale and tears appeared in her eyes. She seemed to have recalled the terrible scene of that day, and her shoulders trembled slightly. It seemed that yesterday's wonderful performance was about to be repeated. Qin Hui waved her hands wildly. Stop, stop. Miss Zhao, don't be like this. This official already believes it. This official already believes it. Zhao Feihuang used her sleeve to cover her face, mournfully saying, Official Qin just came here. How would he know of this young girl's grievance and helplessness? The imperial envoy was afraid that Miss Zhao would cry again, so he quickly and passionately said, Marquis Jing and Fu is full of loyal martyrs. One man died in battle and only relied on the elderly, weak, women, and children to support the family. Miss Zhao has been supporting the family these past few years and is already mentally and physically exhausted, but she managed to keep the Marquis's estate in order. The Marquis's estate has a reputation that it never causes trouble and is Ming Zhou's benevolent family. But how could it be helped that people's hearts are sinister? There was actually a vicious madman who took advantage of the fact that there was no one in the Marquis's estate and openly plundered the estate. This kind of conduct can be said to be deranged, and the evils are too numerous to be recorded. How evil is the Marquis's estate? And how guilty is the Marquis's estate? It all relied on its daily good deeds and accumulated virtue, and the loyal servants wholeheartedly fought back, killing the criminals on the spot and protecting the Marquis's estate from being plundered by the evildoers. But before one wave subsided, another wave arose. There were also people with evil intentions who spread rumors, wanting to destroy the Marquis's estate. They actually falsely accused the Marquis's estate of secretly possessing demonic weapons to cause trouble. These words were said in a clear and orderly manner, and could be said to be a perfect book of Tao. It caused Hu Shouxin's mouth to gape, Su Qinghuan's eyes to widen, and even Zhao Feihuang stared blankly for a moment. Then, with a face full of admiration, he said, The summary is so good. The words are said so well. Official Qin, in the imperial court, you must also be a good official who works for money. Official Qin was first startled, and then he became angry. How can you say that? Also, didn't IF Asterisk King come to a conclusion according to your words? To be able to wash the ground so cleanly and even wash yourself as the victim, you are much more terrifying than me. Qin Hui cursed in her heart. On the other side, Zhao Feihuang seemed to be in high spirits. He bowed and said, Since the upright and honest official Qin is upholding justice for our house and has found out the truth so quickly, then this little girl is relieved. Official Qin, please go back and write the memorial. You are busy and have a lot of things to do every day. This little girl will not disturb you. Hey, 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 where are you running to? Qin Hui was stunned for a moment and said with a bitter smile, Wait, Miss Zhao, things are not as simple as you think. There's a saying that the sage is no better than the emperor. Since His Majesty paid attention to this matter and ordered the imperial envoy to do it, he must have paid attention. Moreover, this matter has already caused discussion in the imperial court. To make the ministers believe it is true, it is not something that can be done with a mere memorial. A confused expression appeared on Miss Zhao's face. Then she thought for a moment and revealed an expression of understanding. She pointed at Qin Hui and then smiled with a "I was confused" expression. It's good that you understand. It's good that you understand." Qin Hui looked at the beautiful girl's smiling face and smiled as well. Zhao Feihuang smiled and stretched out her small hand. She twirled it mysteriously and said in a low voice, "Official Qin, just say it. How much do you want?" "What number?" F***CK. Qin Hui suddenly realized, "Hey, little girl, why are you so familiar with this? How many times have you bribed people?" He felt extremely strange and shook his head. "It's not about the money. It's not about the money. Money is only used to make connections, to ask people to intercede, to make some ministers who can influence the emperor's wishes speak up and help. That's all. However, solid evidence is the most important." In terms of connections, Miss Zhao was born in a family of heroes of Tianyuan. You are also a woman and have many natural allies and sympathizers. In addition, brother who is a great general of Tianyuan and has old friends all over the world. In terms of connections, there is no need to worry. What I mean is that we need more detailed evidence. The imperial envoy's face was full of sincerity, as if he was truly thinking for Miss Zhao's sake. He patiently and patiently said, "A memorial to the throne, even if it is written with flowers and brocade and tears, is only empty words. His Majesty will not fall for it. What I mean is that we need proof and evidence from all sides. For example, the testimony of those who were present on the day of the incident, the records of the Mingzhou government and the Sixth Fan School in this matter, the list of participants, the records of everyone's questioning, and even physical evidence and witnesses. None of these can be missing. The more detailed, the better. It would be best if Miss Zhao could tell me in detail what exactly happened that day." Miss Zhao covered her small mouth and said awkwardly, "Doesn't this mean that I have to make up a logical, flawless story that even exists?" "I didn't hear wrong just now, did I? You directly said the word make up. You directly said it out loud, as if nothing had happened." Qin Hui complained loudly in her heart, but she still had to pinch her nose and resist the urge to flip the table. She continued to cooperate and said, "Yes, Miss Zhao, this is the difficulty of this matter. We have to build a rigorous story that can withstand scrutiny and make up for all the possible omissions. This is the purpose of my visit today. If we want to hide it from the officials of the imperial court and pass this hurdle, this is something that must be done. Moreover, it must be done perfectly and not leave any hidden problems. Therefore, this humble official boldly asks Miss Zhao to recall the truth of what happened that day and see if there are any fatal flaws that need to be covered up." Miss Zhao bit her finger and looked up. She looked like she was in deep thought and looked very cute. The girl's face showed hesitation. Several times, she wanted to say something but stopped. One could even see some wavering in her eyes. Qin Hui shouted in her heart that there was a chance. Just as she wanted to strike while the iron was hot, footsteps came from the inner hall. Hearing these footsteps, Su Qingluan's nervous expression immediately relaxed. Zhao Feihuang's troubled expression was swept away, as if he had found his backbone. None of this escaped Qin Hui's eyes. The imperial envoy quietly lowered his eyes, and a sharp light flashed through them. It seemed that the water in the marquis's manor was a bit deep. Then he heard the sound of a chair rubbing against the ground. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Hu Shouxin stand up. His body was tense, and his expression changed slightly. Qin Hui's heart trembled again. She pretended to be curious and asked, "Elder brother, what's wrong?" Hu Shouxin forced a smile. Brother, in a while if... HM?" Before Qin Hui had time to ask in detail, she heard the sound of footsteps approaching from afar. Then, the person who came out of the screen. It was a delicate and cute little maid. The little girl first timidly glanced at Hu Shouxin and Qin Hui. Then, she ran over to Zhao Feihuang's side with small steps. She first curtsied, then took out a small slip of paper and handed it to her family's eldest miss. Miss Zhao opened it and looked. The smile on her face gradually became brilliant. She nodded repeatedly and then squeezed the maid's little hand. She smiled and said, I know. Go to Stewardly and get some pastries and candies to eat. Qin Hui had been trying to see what was written on the important slip of paper, but she couldn't see it. She was thinking with rapt attention. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Hu Shouxin sit back down in the chair and mutter in a low voice. Bastard. The imperial envoy felt more and more strange. She asked directly, Elder brother, what happened just now? Hu Shouxin's expression was strange. He waved his hand. Nothing. Damn it, I don't know what that bastard Sun Lang did to make the little girl's movements so similar. Ah, that's right. He originally had this kind of ability, just as old who assigned to himself. He heard Zhao Fei Huang stand up and bow to the two of them. She pursed her lips and smiled. Sir Qin's words are very reasonable. However, this matter is not urgent. I will go back and think about it today, make arrangements, unify the statements and statements, eliminate the flaws, and fill in the gaps. In the future, I will ask Sir Qin to come and give advice. Qin Hui's eyebrows rose slightly. Her expression became playful. She smiled and said, behind the marquee manor, could it be that there's an expert guiding it? Zhao Feihuang blinked and smiled slyly. An expert is certainly not an expert, but perhaps it is an elder. A normal person? Can normal person make you? Miss Zhao smile so happily? Can a normal person make you? Miss Zhao obey without question? Qin Hui's heart was cold, but on the surface, she cupped her hands and smiled. Then, this Qin will come and disturb you again tomorrow. Miss Zhao, this Qin is not a gentleman, so before I leave, I will still boldly say a few words about the heart of a lowly person. Her expression gradually turned cold. She calmly said, yesterday, this Qin had a moment of carelessness. My state of mind was agitated, and I made a big mistake. I fell into Miss Zhao's hands. This Qin originally wanted to submit a memorial today to ask for forgiveness, resign, and return to my hometown. In the memorial, I also wrote about the suspicious aspects of Marquis Jinggan Fu. I didn't want Miss Zhao to win so easily. But fortunately, my brother Hu Shouxin bore the responsibility of the sea of blood and calmly reported this matter. Since this matter is related to Empress and the throne, then it is indeed best to be careful. So this Qin can temporarily hide this secret in my heart and discuss a good countermeasure with Miss Zhao to temporarily deal with this matter. I know that Miss Zhao still doesn't believe me. To be honest, I also don't believe Miss Zhao. The reason why we can cooperate with each other is because of Brother Hu's face. I trust Brother Hu. Brother Hu trusts you. Then I also trust you. I also ask Miss Zhao to not disappoint this trust and not do anything unnecessary. Qin Hui cupped his hands in greeting. My brother is sincere and hopes that Miss Zhao can also treat him with sincerity. Otherwise, this Qin will definitely not leave this matter at that. His words were said very softly, but the three people could hear the weight in these words. Hu Shouxin's gaze flickered and he said emotionally, Brother. Miss Zhao smiled and nodded, saying, this little girl knows. Lord Qin and General who have deep feelings for each other. It really makes one envious. Steward Su went to open the door and then led the two people outside, sending them off. Zhao Feihuang watched the two people walk away. He stretched his back and sat back down on his chair. He smiled and said, if it weren't for Sun Yu explaining things in advance, even I would have been fooled. This Lord Qin's performance, his acting, and even his actions were all so reasonable that it was impossible for anyone to see anything wrong with him. Sun Lang flashed out from behind the screen. He smiled and said, no matter what his goal is, our bait has already been scattered. He thinks that his acting is flawless and that everything is under his control. Then, when the truth is revealed in the end, it will be more interesting. So, let's wait and see. Zhao Feihuang's expression changed. He turned and looked at Sun Lang. He smiled and said, then, does Sun Yu want Qin Hui to take the bait or not? Sun Lang was startled. Then, he stretched his back and waved his hand. If the sky wants to rain and the mother wants to marry, then let him be. My world is already very small, so it's still very easy to protect it. Chapter 367. When the imperial envoy was sent off by the steward of the Marquis Fu, there was a sincere smile on his face that came from the bottom of his heart. This kind of leisurely and relaxed attitude made the attendants of the imperial envoy let out a big sigh of relief. Just as they thought, the imperial envoy explained to everyone with a smile that he had already reached an understanding with Miss Zhao and resolved the misunderstanding. Regardless of whether everyone believed it or not, the imperial envoy believed it himself. But no one knew that while Sir Qin was talking and laughing, he was thinking about what had happened in the Marquis Fu. A trace of malice flashed through his eyes. That little girl, surnamed Zhao, still didn't say a single word of truth. Hu Shouxin also followed beside Qin Hui and asked nonchalantly, "Younger brother, it's still early. What should we do today?" Qin Hui pretended to think for a moment and then bowed. "If we want to clarify the truth and investigate the cause and effect, we can't just listen to the words of the Marquis of Jing'an's manor. The opinion files of the Mingzhou Yamen and Six Fan School are also very important. There's no need to trouble two masters for one matter. I'll have to trouble elder brother to introduce me to the Mingzhou prefect and the head constable of Six Fan School." This was showing sincerity. Originally, with his identity as the imperial envoy, he didn't need Hu Shouxin to introduce him. If he wanted to see the officials of Mingzhou, he could just directly visit them and reveal his identity. But Qin Hui knew that this matter was very important and had wide implications. His own identity was also very awkward, so he naturally wouldn't do anything that would make Hu Shouxin suspicious. After all, although this guy looked careless, boorish, and didn't care about trifles, he was still a great general of Tianyuan. For a general who could lead an army on the battlefield and survive 100 battles, which one of them wasn't cautious and suspicious? So, he couldn't act rashly. He had to calm his heart and not make him suspicious. After all, there were still places where he could be of use. But Hu Shouxin was indeed not someone who was easy to deal with. After hearing Qin Hui's words, his brows furrowed slightly. Clearly, he had heard the other party's hidden meaning. He pulled Qin Hui and walked a few steps faster to avoid the attendants behind them. He said in a low voice, "What does younger brother mean? If I didn't believe you, I would have long let you submit a memorial to ask for forgiveness and let you die on your own. If you suspect someone, don't use them. If you use someone, don't doubt them. I, your older brother, still have this bit of magnanimity." Qin Hui's face was filled with gratitude and gratitude. He said in a low voice, "Since elder brother has entrusted me with your trust, I will not let you down. It's just that, elder brother, it's hard to fathom a person's heart. You shouldn't trust others too easily." Hu Shouxin revealed a subtle smile. "Of course I know. I'm not a boor who doesn't know anything. But this time, there was indeed no need to suspect or monitor my younger brother. After all, once this matter was exposed, it would become a matter between you and me. You should know that ever since the establishment of the Tianyuan army, betraying your comrades is as serious a crime as plotting. Since you have promised me, you will definitely keep your promise. Otherwise, how can you have a foothold in the vast world of the 9 states of the empire? That's why I don't doubt you. It's not all because of the trust between the Tianyuan Empire's members. You don't have to worry. These words were a blatant statement of interests." However, Qin Hui did not show any displeasure. Instead, he breathed a sigh of relief and bowed. People say that there's a fine detail in a rough manner. That's what they mean by a hero like elder brother. You may seem rough and careless, but you're actually clear-headed on important matters. I'm relieved that elder brother is so meticulous." As he said this, Qin Hui's heart was somewhat sincere. He suddenly remembered the old affairs of the Tianyuan Empire. Those years of war were indeed precious times in his life that were worth recalling. There was not much intrigue back then. The threat of war and death brought people closer to each other. In a military camp and on the battlefield, there would always be lifelong friendships. No matter how big or small, there was no need to think too hard about it. He only needed to be honest, just like now. Unfortunately, those days were gone. After the victory, the crisis was over, and people's hearts returned to their original darkness at an astonishing speed. He sighed softly and bowed again. After all, you were fooled by me. Hu Shouxin laughed. There was some helplessness in his smile. It seemed that there was nothing he could do about this brother who was too polite. He helped him up and patted his shoulder intimately. After all, you were fooled by me. Yes, at some point in time, the friendship of the Tianyuan era, where promises were worth 1,000 gold and would never be broken in life and death, was gone forever. At noon, after lunch, Qin Hui left the Zhongyi Tower with Wan Yuanzhong. After walking a few laps on the busy street, Wan Yuanzhong said in a low voice, "My lord, I've already observed. Nobody is secretly watching me. However, I can't rule out the possibility that there are peerless experts." Stop. Before he could finish, Qin Hui turned around with cold sweat on her forehead. She looked at Wan Yuanzhong, pressed her hands on his shoulders, and said sincerely, "Brother Yuanzhong, promise me that you won't mention anything about monsters, experts, or enemies for the rest of the day. Is that okay?" Wan Yuanzhong felt the heat coming from his shoulders. Looking at the bearded and dignified face of his master, he felt the breath that blew against his face. For a moment, Wan Yuanzhong was frightened and panicked. He nodded his head and said, "Yes, yes." Qin Hui let out a breath and then let go of his hands. He continued to walk forward with his hands behind his back and said leisurely, "Brother Yuanzhong, today you went to the Marquis Manor. You really did gain a lot." Wan Yuanzhong saw the Lord withdraw and leave. For some reason, he was worried about personal gains and losses. Thinking of this, he was instantly terrified. He quickly chased away this terrifying thought and followed 2 steps, asking, "Dare I ask, what did you gain?" The imperial envoy looked at the local conditions and customs on both sides of the street and said with a smile, "That Miss Zhao's thoughts are deep and sharp. She is extremely shrewd and very difficult to deal with. I was worried that I couldn't find a flaw. Who would have thought that today I would find a very important clue? Who would have thought that such a weak and strong woman would reveal such a childish attitude when she has a sweetheart?" Hearing this, Wan Yuanzhong couldn't help feeling jealous. Previously, he had been stunned by Miss Zhao's charm and brilliance. After all, everyone loved beauty. Such a talented and beautiful woman with land and a house was enough to make the hearts of most men in the world pound. Suddenly hearing that such a dependent person was already taken, it really made one's heart stop. By the way, this was already the second time he felt jealous in these 2 days. His tone was rather indignant. Miss Zhao's charm is simply shocking to me. She is truly a woman of wonder. How could a phoenix be a match for a sparrow? I don't know if the young hero she favors is an extremely high official or is he invincible in the world. To be able to catch Miss Zhao's eye, one day I must meet him. Qin Hui smiled. I don't even know if Miss Zhao's sweetheart is old or young. How do you know it's a young hero? And what do you mean by extremely high official, invincible in the world? Hearing this, Wan Yuanzhong touched his head and blushed. I'm just joking. How can there be an extremely high official, invincible young man in the world? As soon as he said this, he felt the atmosphere change. He saw that his superior suddenly stopped smiling and looked up at the sky. His expression was strange, with a little loneliness and regret. Wan Yuanzhong felt strange and carefully asked, "Sir, did I say something wrong?" Qin Hui suddenly realized and suddenly laughed at himself, softly saying, Yes, there is no such person in the world." He seemed to be eager to cover up his gaffe just now and directly change the topic back to Miss Zhao's sweetheart. He smiled and said, "Although I don't know how old Miss Zhao's sweetheart is, what achievements he has, and what his family background is, it still aroused my curiosity and doubts. If I'm not wrong, I'm afraid there's something fishy about this matter. Miss Zhao just happened to mention that she called brother Hu uncle. I was puzzled, so I casually asked. Miss Zhao said that brother who was the matchmaker for her. Wan Yunzhong pondered for a moment and nodded. So there's this kind of friendship. No wonder. Qin Hui nodded and said, I also think so. Since ancient times, Making two people fall in love with each other has been seen as a good deed. As for being the matchmaker for the noble daughter of the Marquis of Jingonfu, that is an even more glorious and good deed. Since brother who is the matchmaker for the Marquis of Jingonfu, he should feel happy and proud. But what surprised me was that when I continued to ask, brother who actually took the initiative to interrupt me and didn't want to talk about this matter. It really is strange. The flag bearer nodded repeatedly. Hearing you say this, it really is strange. Why does General Hu avoid talking about the identity of Miss Zhao's sweetheart? A cold glint flashed through Qin Hui's eyes. This is something we need to clarify. Previously, I had a glib tongue in the Marquis Fu and almost persuaded Miss Zhao to change her mind and cooperate with us to fabricate, investigate the truth. But a maidservant suddenly came out from the rear hall and handed over a small piece of paper. It immediately made Miss Zhao smile like a flower and have her own opinion and decision. From this, it can be seen that there is an expert hidden in the Marquis Fu who can easily influence Miss Zhao's mood and decision. He pondered carefully, a cold glint flashing through his eyes, and the matter isn't just that. At that time, I peeked at Brother Hu's expression. His gaze was strange, and his expression was somewhat helpless. This aroused my vigilance and attention. Originally, I thought that the matter of the Marquis Fu was completely led by Brother Hu and was in control of the entire situation. That's why I trusted him and cooperated with Brother. But now, it seems that this matter may not be as simple as we thought. Wan Yuanzhong understood the meaning of the song. His eyes moved. There's a problem with Miss Zhao's sweetheart? Qin Hui nodded slightly and said seriously, I originally thought that Miss Zhao was indeed wronged and bitterly endured until now. In this matter, there must be difficulties. But perhaps this matter is more complicated than we thought. Her sweetheart, who is so mysterious that even Brother Hu is unwilling to talk about, may be the key factor in this matter. He may even be the main culprit. The situation may be even worse. The Marquis Fu and Miss Zhao may have become someone's puppets. These words were especially effective on Wan Yuanzhong. Official One originally had a lot of opinions about Miss Zhao's sweetheart. Hearing Qin Hui's provocative words, he immediately jumped 3 feet high and rolled up his sleeves, saying, outrageous, preposterous. Deceiving the noble daughter of the Marquis Fu is a serious crime. We have the imperial order. How can we sit by and watch this happen? No need to say it. No need to say it. We must investigate this matter and find out the truth. As he spoke, he became agitated and waved his arm. He didn't expect that he would use too much strength. With a bang, he seemed to hit something. Oh my! Immeasurable longevity Buddha. Who sneak attacked me? Chapter 368. Qin Hui and Wan Yuanzhong. The two of them were both civil officials. That is, the kind that care more about face, knowing etiquette, and not power. As long as it didn't harm their own interests, they were usually tolerant, kind, and courteous. When Wan Darren expressed his opinion, his body language was too big and accidentally hit a passerby. It was clear that he was in the wrong. He naturally didn't have the mindset of a low-level bully villain. Listening to the tone of this person's voice, it was clear that he was an old Taoist, with the conduct that a scholar should have. No matter if it was an old man or a Taoist, they all had to show respect. So he hurriedly turned around and retreated 2 steps, apologizing. It's this small one's fault. This small one apologizes to Taoist. Qin Hui also restrained her smile. She first calmly sized up the Taoist who was clutching his chest and grimacing in pain. His cautious personality and careful habits made it so that he wouldn't let go of any suspicious matter. And his hair and beard were all white. He had a dignified appearance and could be said to have an immortal aura. As the ancient saying goes, one's appearance comes from one's heart, so he should be a true Taoist. But his face was pale and his figure was slightly stooped. He should have been seriously injured recently. His expression was hurried and his face was vigilant. He should have had an urgent matter and was afraid that people would know, so he was caught off guard and was hit by Brother Yuanzhong. The imperial envoy slightly relaxed his vigilance. Although he was a little curious, he had the emperor's orders today, and the matters of Marquis Jing and Fu were complicated. He really didn't want to complicate matters. Just an ordinary Taoist. He smiled and cupped his hands, saying, "Taoist is too courteous. My worthy younger brother's temper is a bit impatient and accidentally offended Taoist. I apologize on his behalf." At this point, according to the normal plot development, this matter should have ended here. It was just a small misunderstanding. The person who accidentally made a mistake would politely and considerately apologize, and the person who was offended wouldn't have any losses. Seeing the other party's sincere attitude, they definitely wouldn't pursue the matter. The two sides would meet and smile, and the matter would be resolved. This was a typical small matter of humility and tolerance, but that Taoist clutched his slightly painful chest and sized up the two scholars in front of him. His expression was a bit shocked. This husband. He bowed to Qin Hui and slowly said, "This poor Taoist is proficient in the art of physiognomy. You recently. I'm afraid that there will be a bloody disaster." This was fucking awkward. It was rather awkward. Due to the uniqueness of this world, the Empire's reverence and trust for the gods and Buddhas were not so strong. After all, when the sky demon attacked, the great rivers and mountains fell, countless people died, the army was defeated, and the national treasure was shaken. In desperation, they naturally thought of begging the gods and Buddhas. But no matter how sincerely they prayed, no matter how pious they worshipped, the heavenly court did not send a single heavenly soldier, and the Western paradise did not show a single Arhat. In the end, it still depended on the blood of the people and the soldiers to reclaim the land and protect the country. Since you can't help us get through the difficulties, then what's the use of your hammer? In addition, martial arts were prevalent in the Empire. Warriors refined essence into qi and became dragons among men. They relied on self-improvement and believed that the heavenly way rewarded the diligent. Most people stayed away from the mysteries of the gods and Buddhas. They thought that the greatest use of these things was to fool the people and stabilize the country. Meat eaters did not believe it, especially Qin Hui, who was a kung fu doctor from the origin of heaven. He did not take these mysterious things seriously. If it was in normal times, suddenly a mysterious Taoist suddenly said that he would have a bloody disaster. Qin Hui would most likely laugh it off. If the Taoist was an alarmist and pestered him endlessly, he would send him to the government to teach him a lesson. But his face suddenly darkened. Unexpectedly, this Taoist priest accidentally said such sensational words at this critical moment. He came to Mingzhou under the emperor's order and secretly carried out a special mission. He walked between Hu Shouxin, whose position was unknown, and Zhao Fei Huang, who was a scheming person. He pretended to be polite to them and secretly conspired with them. What he did was to seek riches and honor in danger. "You King said that I'm going to have a bloody disaster. Qin Hui, will kill you today." When one Yuanzhong heard this, the loyal flag bearer's face also changed. He also had the same thought as Qin Hui. "You Taoist, you really know how to pick the right time to fan the flames." He stepped forward and glared at the Taoist. Ignoring his previous impoliteness, he glared at the Taoist and said angrily, "I've often heard that in big cities and small towns, there are often deceivers who pretend to be wandering Taoists. They are known as iron-mouthed Taoists, and they specialize in fortune-telling and cheating people of their money. When they see rich people, they will threaten them and say that they will have a bloody disaster. Or they will be shocked and say that they are afraid of losing their lifespan, so they don't dare to do fortune-telling. Once they have hooked the person's appetite, they will lure him into a jar and use their glib tongue to coax him into giving up his savings. They will trick him until he is dizzy and then run away." These are the words of a Taoist. The old Taoist said unhappily, "I used to travel the world. Although I make a living by reading people's faces, I only ask for food and warm clothes. I never ask for more, so why would I cheat people of their money? Moreover, I have an urgent matter to attend to today. I only saw that the two of you are gentle and polite, and this one is facing a disaster. I couldn't bear it, so I reminded you. It was completely out of kindness. You little brat, you became angry out of humiliation and hurt people. It's unreasonable. He squinted his eyes and looked at one Yuan carefully. He said, looking at you carefully, you don't seem to be very stable recently. Moreover, looking at your face, it seems, the Taoist priest looked at one Yuan and then at Qin Hui. His face was full of doubt. He wanted to say something, but stopped. The two of you, the speaker didn't mean it, but the listener took it seriously. One Yuan's heart skipped a beat, and then he became angry. What are you trying to say? Brother Qin and I are innocent. There is nothing between us. He said angrily, shut up, shameless old thief. Not only do you dare to talk nonsense to threaten my brother, you even dare to have ideas about me. You're really abominable. Hurry up and get lost. Otherwise, I'll definitely send you to the authorities and convict you of speaking nonsense. The Taoist priest was also angry. He blew his beard and glared at them. I only saw that the two of you were polite, so I gave you some advice. I didn't want your money. You and I don't know each other, so why would I bully you? Although honest words are unpleasant to the ear, there is no harm in listening. Your brother's face looks like he is about to face a bloody disaster, and one Yuan didn't want to listen, but when he did, he became angrier. Shut up. Do you know my brother's identity? Be careful with your words and actions, and don't you want to retreat? He is loyal to the king, indomitable, and never betrays his friends. He is righteous and has many noble people helping him. He also has fierce warriors following him. He is loyal and pure, and he does righteous things. It can be said that he occupies the right time, the right place, and the right people. How can his life be in danger? Tell me, how can his life be in danger? The Taoist priest didn't want to be outdone. He straightened his neck and said, Rottenwood can't be carved. How can there be a foolproof thing in this world? As the saying goes, a wise man's 1,000 considerations is bound to make a mistake. Even if your brother is fully prepared, who knows if he won't make a mistake and lose the whole game? One Yuan said angrily, You Taoist priest, you only know how to talk alarmist. My brother is upright and never does things with schemes and schemes. He is in the prime of his life and has a high position. If he succeeds this time, he will definitely rise to the top and bring glory to his ancestors. He will benefit his family, and his future will be limitless. Your bullshit mouth is really smelly. The Taoist priest stomped his feet and said, I helped you with good intentions. It's fine if you don't appreciate it, but you keep on attacking me. This is really intolerable. Don't mention your brother. I think you can't even protect yourself. Your eyes are upright and righteous, but you are a stupid person. Your beliefs will be changed. Recently, you have an unresolvable dilemma. I advise you to open your eyes as soon as possible. One Yuan laughed and said, A bunch of nonsense. I follow my brother and am his vanguard. What is there that is unresolvable? You Taoist priest, don't talk alarmist. I don't believe it. Don't you know how to read faces? I will read your face too. I see that you are flustered and your energy is weak. You must be guilty and ran away. Today, you are talking nonsense here. Be careful. Retribution is right in front of you. The Taoist priest felt that his field of expertise was being challenged. He raised his eyebrows and sneered. He rolled up his sleeves and said, You won't cry until you see the coffin. Fine. Today I will. At this moment, a low Buddhist chant sounded in their ears, Amit Ba. In an instant, the arrogant Taoist priest was like a mouse that saw a cat. His face changed, and he shouted, You are suffering. He didn't have time to teach the impolite boy in front of him a lesson. His legs trembled, and he was about to leave. However, they felt the wind blow, and a figure flashed. A nun wearing a gorgeous cassock and holding a 9-ringed monk's staff appeared beside them. She was very beautiful and tall. Her black hair flowed down. Except for the monk's robe, she didn't look like a monk. Even the sacred 9-ringed monk's staff and the Buddhist beads on her neck gave people an inexplicable feeling of ferocity. She held the staff in one hand and saluted with the other. She first bowed to the two onlookers and then said to the Taoist priest gently, "Senior brother by Shui, you have not recovered from your injury. You're making things difficult for all the martial uncles here. Please follow me back to the temple." The Taoist priest, named by Shui, had a frightened look on his face. He looked like a weak little wife, and there was no trace of his earlier poise. He said pitifully, "I miss my benefactor, Hero Sunday. I haven't seen him for a long time. I don't know how he is, whether he is happy or not. He is my benefactor, but I have nothing to repay him with. I just want to see him. If he is well, I will be relieved. Can you do that? Is that okay?" The demonic monk, who was jokingly called Giant Nun by Sun Lang, was a nun of the Daju Temple. Her reputation seemed to be so well known in the world of cultivation that Taoist by Shui was afraid of her. Her Buddhist name was Sanzang. On the day when Taoist by Shui was attacked by a horned tiger, he was seriously injured and couldn't return to the Xingyang Palace to recuperate for a while. Based on the principle of solidarity and helping each other, and the guiding ideology of the feudal and harmonious religious view of the world's Buddhism and Taoism, Xingyang Palace sent a letter to the Daju Temple and asked the Daju Temple to take care of this poor 80-year-old boy. From Daju Temple's roaring and swearing after hearing the news, it was clear that there must be an unimaginable deal between friends and evil conspiracy, because the Daju Temple was a nunnery. Asking a male Taoist to live in a nunnery was like throwing an Oriental man into a group of moon chefs. Taoist by Shui's mood could be imagined. According to him, this was an evil conspiracy and shameful suppression by the Xingyang Palace against him, and he would definitely be retaliated thousands of times. Although he said so, he still couldn't resist the brute force and coercion of Sanzang of the Tang family. He was forced to follow her to the Daju Temple to recuperate. However, although his body was submissive, his soul was always free. This time, he took advantage of the unpreparedness of the nuns and escaped from the Daju Temple. He originally wanted to go back to the Xingyang Palace directly to reason with those bastards who hid him when he was down. However, he felt that his injury had not healed and he was not well prepared. If he went back rashly, he would probably be beaten by his master and his fellow apprentices again. It was really not good. Moreover, the nuns in the Daju Temple would definitely pursue him if they found that he had escaped. He thought hard and finally had to admit that the current plan was to go to Mingzhou as soon as possible and ask for Master Sun's protection. After the strange doctor passed away that day, for some reason, the ever-changing fate surrounding Master Sun became a little clearer. Although he still felt dizzy and nauseous when he looked at it, at least he could see some things clearly. Taoist by Shui couldn't hold back his curiosity. He carefully looked at Master Sun's face and obtained an important piece of information. This man was probably invincible among all the women in the world. Yes, the tip of the iceberg did reveal such news. Swordsman Sun seemed to be the nemesis of all women in the world. No matter how strong a woman was, as long as she was a woman, no matter how strong she would not be able to last more than a few rounds in Swordsman Sun's hands. His face did indeed show that he had a natural suppressive advantage over all women. It was as natural as tigers and wolves preying on cows and sheep. Although he didn't know why this was only effective on women, there was no doubt that Master Sun was obviously a strong man who could kill all the women, from 8-year-old children to 80-year-old women. Of course, this included the infamous Tang family Sanzang. Therefore, when Taoist by Shui saw that he couldn't escape, he pitifully made such a request. "I just want to see Master Sun once. Just once. After confirming that he's safe, I'll go with you obediently." Although he said that, he couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Master Sun is honest, simple, and kind-hearted. When the time comes, I'll cry and beg him, and he'll definitely stand up for me. However, I have to repay the kindness of others. I haven't repaid the kindness of saving my life before. Today, I have to ask him for help, but I can't repay him. Even if I'm a monk, I'll feel ashamed. I'm just a monk. I don't have anything on me. I can only use the art of physiognomy to repay Master Sun. As the saying goes, when things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. All things are balanced. Master Sun is the bane of all the women in the world, so he's bound to be feared by all the women in the world. He looks like he's surrounded by women, but in reality, it's hard for yin and yang to work together, so he can't achieve a positive result. This poor Taoist isn't talented, but I can't watch my good friend be alone for the rest of his life. It just so happens that this demonic monk's mortal karma has yet to be settled. He'll definitely have an ill-fated relationship. Rather than benefiting others, why don't I see if I can help Master Sun? But isn't this a little bad? Just as he was hesitating for a moment, he heard the demonic monk laugh. Amipa, this poor nun admires the friendship between Senior Martial Brother and Master Sunday. However, Senior Martial Brother can be at ease. A few days ago, when this poor nun completed her mission and left Marquis Jingon Fu, I had a brief meeting with Benefactor Sunday. He was in high spirits, and the faint haze between his brows had dissipated quite a bit. He must have thought through another matter. Does Senior Martial Brother feel at ease? Then follow this poor nun back to the temple. I've decided. You demonic monk, this poor Taoist will definitely trick you this time. Qin Hui first met this Taoist who was spouting nonsense. Then she met this strange nun. Hearing these two monks who didn't know what was good for them chatting in front of her, she felt a little awkward. Just as she wanted to flick her sleeves and leave, she suddenly heard the words Marquis Jingon Fu. To the current imperial envoy, this word was like a clap of thunder. He suddenly showed a pleasantly surprised expression and cupped his hands. This great master, you were just talking about Marquis Jingon Fu? Taoist by Shui coldly watched from the side. His heart trembled slightly. That immortal face of his did not show it, but his heart was slightly surprised. Such a fake act. Chapter 369. When Qin Hui heard the words Marquis Jingon Fu from the mouth of that nun who didn't look like a nun, his mind was roused. His intuition faintly told him that the hero's son, that this Taoist priest and nun were talking about might be the person he was looking for. So he didn't care about being rude and directly cupped his hands in greeting. This great master, you were talking about Marquis Jingon Fu just now? Wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search only to find it by chance without any effort, Taoist Sanzang was startled when he heard this and then bowed. Amitabha Buddha, I wonder who Benefactor is. This one's surname is Qin, and I am a guest of the Marquis Fu. I've been staying in the Marquis Fu for the past 2 days. Qin Hui asked nonchalantly, but I haven't seen Hero's son recently. Great master, have you seen him? The nun was a monk and was fierce, but she didn't have so many tricks up her sleeve. Hearing this, she replied, Amitabha Buddha, Hero's son. But Taoist priest by Shui's eyes flashed, and he took 2 steps forward, interrupting Taoist priest Sanzang's words, saying repeatedly, he is actually a Marquis Jingon Fu? No wonder. This Benefactor Qin, seeing that you are a guest of Marquis Jingon Fu, this old Taoist will say a few words at the end. This poor Taoist said that you recently met with a bloody disaster, and it was not a lie. Your physiognomy, Wan Yuanzhong flew into a rage. Taoist priest still dares to be rude. There's no end to it. My elder brother will live a long life of 100 years, his lifespan as long as the southern mountains. How could there be a bloody disaster? Qin Hui also brushed his sleeves. Because his conversation was interrupted, he was a little unhappy. Strange forces, chaotic gods, we should stay at a respectful distance. We should do our best and leave the rest to fate. This Qin doesn't believe in this kind of vague theory. Taoist priest, don't say any more. But that Taoist priest blew up his beard and glared. This poor Taoist master is a profound sect, and the art of yin and yang divination is unparalleled in the world. If it was normal times, then it would be fine, but now that Deju Temple's demon, Abbess is here, if this poor Taoist retreats, then wouldn't it be degrading the prestige of my master? No, I must resolve this calamity for you today. He took a few steps forward and shouted majestically, Mr. Qin, forgive me for speaking bluntly, but your brows are tightly furrowed and you look vigilant. I'm afraid that you're shouldering an important mission. You look dazed and frightened. I'm sure that you've encountered a major setback that you can't understand. There are wrinkles at the corners of your eyes, which means that you're secretly delighted. You should have succeeded with your little tricks, but you look like you're about to die. I'm afraid that you've gone for wool and come home shorn. Qin Hui's expression suddenly changed, and one Yuanzhong couldn't hold back anymore. He clenched his fists and punched. I'll beat you up, you bullsh *t. Although Taoist priest Bai Shui had not yet recovered from his injuries, one Yuanzhong had not used any martial arts. Furthermore, Taoist priest Bai Shui had learned to be outspoken during his time in the sect. Therefore, he immediately dodged and said, "In you seem to be full of righteousness and loyalty, but in fact, you often make mistakes unintentionally. You're easily wronged and become a scapegoat. I'm afraid that you've met the wrong person. It's difficult for you to make a difference in the imperial court." One Yuanzhong shouted angrily. Qin Hui's face was as calm as water. Her hands were in her sleeves, and her eyes flashed coldly. Seeing that a fight was about to break out in the downtown area, Master Sanzang could not bear it anymore. First, she waved her sleeve, and a gentle force gently bounced one Yuanzhong away. Then, she grabbed Taoist priest Bai Shui's collar, as if she was holding chicken. She nodded to the two people and apologized. Senior brother Bai Shui is seriously injured. He has a strange temper and talked nonsense. Please forgive me. I'll leave now. Qin Hui was still counting on Master Sun's news. She wanted to say something, but Master Sanzang did not stop and directly dragged Taoist priest Bai Shui away. Taoist priest Bai Shui was waving his limbs and white hair. He did not forget to shout, "Mr. Qin, be careful. Practice morality. Don't do anything sinister. Looking at your face, I'm afraid that you'll die in the hands of an unexpected acquaintance." Wan Yuanzhong was still angrily cursing. "How show? Old bastard. My brother has a noble status and is blessed with good fortune. Who dares to kill him? Who dares to kill him? Who dares to kill him?" He naturally thought that the old Taoist priest was talking nonsense, but Qin Hui was slightly shocked. She did not chase after him. She first looked at Tang Sanzang's back with fear, and then began to think in her heart. The nun had just bounced brother Yuanzhong away. Her cassock was filled with gentle force, and she lifted heavy things as if they were light. She had already mastered the breaking monk kung fu. Just now, the old Taoist priest said that she came from Deju Temple, so it was probably true. She could be called senior brother by the masters of Deju Temple and claimed to be from the Orthodox sect. The nun did not deny it, so it was probably true. Although this Taoist priest kept saying that I would face a bloody disaster, his speculation just now was almost completely correct. I did come under the orders of the emperor, and there was also the order of that lord in the dark. I inexplicably encountered a big monster causing trouble, and I was also tricked by Zhao Feihuang to the point that I was speechless. I was secretly happy because I had successfully deceived Hu Shouxin and his evaluation of brother Yuanzhong. These were all true. Then he said that I would be misled by petty tricks, go for wool, and come home shorn, fail at the last step, and lose the whole game. Was it true or false? And he also said that I would die at the hands of an acquaintance I would never have expected. A ray of cold light flashed through his eyes. Hu Shouxin. For a moment his mind was in a mess, and his heart was beating wildly. Wan Yuanzhong had scolded enough and came to his side, still indignant. The flag-bearer saw the imperial envoy's worried face and thought that he was frightened by the Taoist priest's nonsense. He comforted him, "Sir, you don't have to worry. That Taoist priest is just a person who deceives the world to gain fame. Now, we have reached a consensus with Miss Zhao, General Hu's help, and the imperial envoy's brilliant power. I am not talented, but I can analyze the facts and measure the chances of victory. I'm a genuine scholar. Let me ask you, we have such a big advantage. How can we fail?" Wan Yuanzhong saw that the imperial envoy was silent, so he struck while the iron was hot and said, "Brother, Cheer up and complete the task given by the emperor. After this, we still have to go to your hometown, brother Yuanzhong. Qin Hui interrupted him with a complicated expression. I just feel a little cold. One Yuanzhong raised his head and looked at the sun. It was not cold today. Qin Hui saw that brother Yuanzhong had shut up and was inexplicably relieved. He looked at the direction where the monk and Taoist priest had disappeared and thought for a moment, then smiled coldly. It was not all for nothing. At least he knew a key name. Master Sunday Humph, I want to see who you are. After Taoist white snow was dragged far away, he stopped struggling after looking into the distance for a while. A wisp of wisdom flashed in his eyes, and he said in a low voice, Put me down. They can't see us anymore. Master Sanzang turned a deaf ear and continued to drag him away. The Taoist priest's aura of a wise man who had the pearl of wisdom in his hand and was able to devise strategies in a tent was instantly shattered. He shouted in embarrassment, Hey, I said put me down. Put me down. Master Sanzang of the Tang family raised his eyebrows. In reality, he disliked this Taoist brother who always liked to cause trouble. Shi Xiang, what's wrong? Let's quickly return to the Zhu temple. Taoist priest Bai Shui said solemnly, I'm not joking with you. Marquis Jinggan Fu is in trouble, and even Master Sun has been targeted. How can this poor Taoist sit by and do nothing? Master Sanzang was puzzled. How do you know? Taoist priest Bai Shui stroked his beard, proudly saying, This poor Taoist travels the Jianghu with the art of physiognomy. Of all living things, the stupid, the smart, the upright, the despicable, the astute, the numb, I've seen who knows how many. Using Master Sun's words, I've experienced hundreds of battles and have seen many. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect. This poor Taoist has read people's faces for a long time and can also determine the true thoughts in their hearts from the minute changes in their expressions. He pondered for a moment and recalled the situation at that time, slowly saying, his disguise and appearance were most likely cultivated in the officialdom. It's a pity that he could deceive his colleagues and superiors, but he couldn't deceive me. When he mentioned Marquis Jinggan Fu, even though he had a smile on his face, there were no wrinkles in the corners of his eyes. There was no smile in his eyes. This shows that this happy mood was a disguise. He has a lot of opinions about Marquis Jinggan Fu. When he mentioned Master Sun, he acted as if he was very familiar with Master Sun, but his shoulder moved slightly, showing that he was not very confident in what he said. When he mentioned Master Sun, his eyes stared straight at you, wanting to see if you believed his words. You have to know, when normal people talk with others about someone, the first thing they would do is look to the left. At that time, the image of that person would appear in their mind. But this Sir Qin did not. Taoist priest Bai Shui's eyes showed that he was deep in thought, listing out Qin Hui's suspicious points one by one, showing suspicion in his eyes, showing interest in Master Sunday. His body tensed up, treating Master Sun as a target of hostility. He knew nothing about Master Sun, but acted as if nothing had happened and asked about him. Moreover, he had hostility in his heart. This shows that he has his eyes on Master Sunday, combined with the flaws that these two people revealed before. This poor Taoist is 80% sure that these two people have ill intentions toward Marquis Jinggan Fu and have their eyes on Master Sun. Monk Sanzang did not understand and listened for a while. Seeing that Taoist priest Bai Shui had come to a conclusion, he made an O sound and continued to grab Taoist priest Bai Shui as they walked. The Taoist priest was furious and struggled while baring his fangs and brandishing his claws. Monks are merciful and can't even bear to step on ants. Not to mention that you and Marquis Jinggan Fu and Master Sun are old friends. Even if you don't know each other, if you meet an innocent person who is being coveted by evil people, you would also lend a helping hand. How can you sit by and do nothing? Monk Sanzang smiled and said, Fellow Taoist, how can Master Sun be easy to deal with? If these two benefactors were to bump into him, their heads would definitely be broken and bleeding. Don't you know this? Master Sun's martial arts are excellent, and he has hundreds of strategies. How can he not be able to deal with those two people? Fellow Taoist, it's not that this poor nun is looking down on you, but your injuries have not healed yet. How can you help Master Sun? Taoist priest Bai Shui's expression froze, and then he stuttered as he retorted, You can't say this. Whether or not I can help and whether or not I will do it are two different things. Swordsman Sun has encountered a threat, and I have received his kindness, so I naturally have to step forward and lend him a hand. How can I hide on the side with a clear conscience, just because I haven't recovered from my injuries and Swordsman Sun can deal with it himself? This poor nun's conscience will be uneasy. Sanzang smiled and said, Then how about this? This poor nun will send Senior Marshal Brother back to recuperate and then make a trip to Mingzhou City to report this matter to Master Sunday. Ask him to be on guard and stay here to lend him a helping hand. How about it? Let me do Senior Marshal Brother's good intentions. In any case, Senior Marshal Brother's injuries are not light and will be a hindrance. He won't be able to help much. Did you just say something very impolite, as if nothing had happened? Sanzang of the Tang family smiled and said, Senior Marshal Brother, although this poor nun is slow-witted, she is not stupid. If you find Master Sun and cry to him and ask him to take you in, if Master Sun is moved by your words, how can this poor nun be his opponent? How can this poor nun withstand his attacks? Since the Ju Temple has been entrusted by Zhanyang Palace, then they must cure Senior Marshal Brother. How can they give up halfway? Taoist Bai Shui rolled his eyes. This nun was not stupid. She actually saw through his scheme. Taoist Sanzang smiled and wanted to continue on his way with Taoist Bai Shui when he suddenly heard the Taoist shout again, Slow down, slow down. The demon monk was already somewhat impatient. He stabbed the 9-dragon staff in his left hand into the ground with a bang. Then he moved his left wrist and slowly clenched it into a fist. He smiled kindly and said, Is Senior Marshal Brother tired and wants to sleep for a while? Taoist Bai Shui was scared witless, but he gritted his teeth and still said loudly, All right, I admit it. Previously, I indeed wanted to ask Master Sun to stop you, but now I've changed my mind. I want to stay here and interfere with this matter, not only to protect Marquis Jingon Fu and repay Master Sun's grace, but also to save a person. Saving a life is better than building a 7-floor pagoda. Sanzang heard this and asked curiously, Save who? The Taoist spoke very quickly. It's that idiot next to Serene, the guy who keeps pointing fingers at this Taoist and speaking ill of me. Taoist Master frowned, clearly unable to understand these words. She looked at Taoist Bai Shui, indicating for him to continue. The Taoist Master softly said, This person's physiognomy is also not very good. When this Taoist gives physiognomy, I only talk about worldly affairs and not people's hearts. This is because everyone has their own selfishness, and it's hard to express what's inside. I can only talk about behavior and not the heart. Even if it's a great philanthropist who accumulates virtue and has a good reputation, there will definitely be darkness in the depths of his heart that no one knows. So I have always avoided revealing the true appearance of people's hearts. So just now, there are some things that I did not say directly. He sighed that Serene is a great traitor but loyal. His stance is uncertain. He chases after benefits and is prone to change his mind. He is definitely not a good person and is only good at disguising himself to be able to deceive the world. That arrogant brat was also deceived by him. That brat's personality is upright and honest, loyal and devoted. It's just that his master is about to meet with a great calamity soon. If a person is about to die, he will definitely fight like a cornered beast and do everything to continue living. The mask that he usually pretends to be torn apart and his ugly face will be completely exposed. I'm afraid that at that time, that brat will, because of his upright personality, give his life in vain. He quietly said, Master Sun's personality is free and easy. He is more disillusioned with the world of mortals than us monks. He feels that life and death are fated and each is in the hands of the heavens. He will not purposely save the life of a person that he does not care about. Taoist Sanzang somewhat understood. So you want to save him? Not to save, but to enlighten. Taoist Bai Shui revealed an interested smile. I don't know why, but I see something very familiar in this rude brat. I feel something very similar to me. His physiognomy is not suitable to be an official, but he is suitable for something else. This Taoist is not talented, so I want to enlighten him. Chapter 370. Taoist by Shui had been traveling in Ming province for quite some time now. It was said that the secular world was good for cultivation, and it was true. During this time, he had encountered many things and met many unforgettable people. Every one of them had left a deep impression on him. For example, Horned Tiger Siaji, who had been consumed by hatred all his life and could not and did not want to look back. For example, General Zhao Yunlong, who is unparalleled to the ends of the earth. For example, strange Dr. Ping Yi Dao, who adhered to the benevolence of a doctor and did not regret his death. For example, Zhang Jianyuan, the despicable, black-hearted, heartless, rich, and heartless bastard who sold stinky tofu, was beyond redemption. Among these people, the one who left the deepest impression on him was a man named Sun Lang. When they first met, he claimed to be a wanderer, but he did not look like a wanderer. His facial features were ever-changing and impossible to predict. A few glances at him would make one dizzy. His temperament was very strange. Sometimes he was as willful as a child, and sometimes he was as old as an old man. He had some ideas that were not something a young man of his age could have. Because the art of physiognomy could not work, Taoist by Shui lost the tool to read people's minds. If he wanted to understand Sun Lang, he could only think and understand him through his words and actions. He felt that Sun Lang's image in his mind was like a cloudy mountain. He could not see clearly. Sun Lang always talked about life principles. They seemed vague, but every time he thought about them, he felt that they were very reasonable. For example, Taoist by Shui now thought of a sentence that Sun Lang always said. Combined with the facts at hand, he felt that it was very reasonable. People just don't know. They can't predict. If that was the case, even if he was a proud disciple of Zhengyang Palace, who was proficient in divination, he would never know why a fortune-telling Taoist of Zhengyang Palace would suddenly have the idea of enlightening a fated person in Mingzhou. That's right. Out of some inexplicable obsession, he seemed to have developed a strange interest in the person who had just spoken to him. Perhaps this was a predestined fate. Alas, I'm also confused. Although I have decided to enlighten him, I still do not know his name. The next time they meet, she must remember to ask him, "What's your name?" or something. The figure of that person appeared in Taoist by Shui's mind. He stroked his beard. Sigh, to think that I, by Shui, have cultivated for a long time and can be considered a top figure in the sect. Who in Zhengyang Palace doesn't know that this Taoist prediction is absolute? But today, some of my fellow disciples of the same age already have grand disciples, but I'm still alone. When I'm being beaten up, I don't even have anyone to accompany me. I'm really very lonely. However, the reason why he didn't take in a disciple was because the candidate's aptitude wasn't good enough. Secondly, it was because fate hadn't arrived yet. And today, this fate seems to have arrived. The moment I saw that person, I felt a sense of familiarity. It seems that there is a strong similarity between the two of us, and it is this similarity that attracts me. This humble Taoist pondered for a moment, and I think that the similarity is the desire for the Tao and the pursuit of kindness. That is the reason why this humble Taoist is the Tao and the pursuit of goodness, Amateus Buddha. He tidied his robe and bowed to Master Sanzang. I have a sudden impulse to enlighten a fated person. Please help me. This was an important matter related to the inheritance of a legacy. This reason was enough to make Sanzang of Tang family hesitate. Cultivators saw through the secular world and ignored the affairs of the mortal world. There were few things that could move them. The inheritance of Tao and cultivation was the most important. If he interfered, he would be ruining the inheritance. Even Master Sanzang, who did not care about trifles, felt that this was very inappropriate. She hesitated for a moment and asked suspiciously, "Senior brother, you are not lying to me?" Taoist by Shui did not say anything. He raised 3 fingers and said directly, If I lie to you, I will fall into the hands of that bastard Zhang Jianyuan and be drowned in the stinky tofu vat. Seeing his solemn expression and desperate momentum, Master Sanzang couldn't help but shiver. Although she didn't know who Zhang Jianyuan was and didn't know what stinky tofu was, she clearly felt that this fellow Taoist was serious. So, she thought for a moment and finally nodded. Good. Senior Marshal Brother, this is what you said. If you lie, this poor nun will definitely catch you and hand you over to that benefactor Zhang. I will personally watch him soak you in the stinky tofu jar. Although he wasn't lying, Taoist White Snow still had a complicated look on his face. Master, has anyone ever told you that you always say things that monks shouldn't say? Master Sanzang was a little confused, but she was not a person who wanted to get to the bottom of things. Hearing this, she just smiled. Even so, I still have to make an appointment with you. Your injury has not healed, so I will accompany you to protect you. Taoist Bai Shui promised, but in his heart, he laughed sinisterly. Although I did not lie, and also made an oath, I did not say that I would not plot against you. You evil monk, these days you have trapped me so hard. I will repay evil with good, and lead you to connect with Master Sun so that you can resolve your ill-fated relationship. You took the initiative to ask to accompany me. When the time comes, you must enjoy it well. Fortunately, Master Sanzang did not practice the mind-reading technique. Otherwise, if she perceived Taoist Bai Shui's thoughts, that 9-dragon staff would be stained with Taoist Bai Shui's brain. She mentioned 2 more agreements, and Taoist Bai Shui agreed to them one by one. In the end, Master Sanzang chose to compromise. He chanted the name of Buddha and smiled. Then I will congratulate you in advance for finding a good disciple. As he said that, a rare look of envy and embarrassment appeared on the face of the demonic monk of Deju Temple. I also want to teach a disciple, but I don't know when my fate will come. Taoist Bai Shui glanced at her and laughed in his heart. Dream on. You don't look like a person who has disciples. Your children are quite prosperous. Good luck to your children. You're good at giving birth. You should quickly return to the secular world and get married. But even people like Taoist Bai Shui knew that there were some words that could not be said. He closed his mouth and did not mention it, but he heard Master Sanzang knock on his head with a confused expression. He said softly, but I vaguely feel that I seem to have 3 disciples before, but I can't remember clearly. I feel that those memories are shrouded in a cloud, and I can't see clearly. I asked the elders in the sect, but they refused to tell me. They just told me that what happened yesterday can't be traced and held. Taoist Bai Shui's expression changed. He faintly thought of a taboo thing that his master accidentally mentioned. He felt a chill in his heart and said with a smile, Master, we should be on our way. Master Sanzang also came to his senses. He restrained his confusion and helplessness and turned back into the brave and energetic evil monk of Deju Temple. She nodded. Where shall we go first? The Taoist Bai Shui said that Mr. Qin has bad intentions toward Master Sunday. No matter what we want to do, we have to do our duty as friends first. Let's inform him to guard against this and be careful. Let's go to the immortal fishing house first. Tang family's Sanzang immediately showed a vigilant expression and looked at the Taoist Bai Shui with suspicious eyes. Senior brother, you won't go directly to Master Sun and sell me out, will you? In the context of Master Sanzang, sell me out meant betrayal. It meant that priest Bai Shui had made a promise to Master Sanzang, but he turned around and went back on his word to seek refuge with Sun Lang, asking him to take him in and resist Master Sanzang. But in the ears of priest Bai Shui, who had a guilty conscience, it obviously made him feel guilty. Wasn't he planning to sell this demon monk to Master Sun? He laughed a few times. Am I such a person? It's just that we have to do this. We must remind Master Sun to be on guard. It's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to guard against a stab in the dark. Besides, I've made that kind of oath. Master Sanzang, you still don't believe me? Although Master Sanzang's combat power was as high as 6 Hanzangs, much higher than Taoist Bai Shui who sold his mouth, but in terms of bluffing and deceiving people, he was really inferior. He was quickly convinced by Taoist by Shui. The two people rushed towards the direction of the fishing immortal building. However, to Taoist by Shui's disappointment, the fishing immortal building was guarded by iron generals. Master Sun and his wives were nowhere to be found. He walked in circles on the spot a few times and was a little anxious. Strange. Usually even if Master Sun isn't here, Ms. Zhang will look after the house. If not, that chrysanthemum spirit will also stay behind. Why aren't they here? Master Sanzang was previously persuaded by Sun Lang to be Miss Zhao's bodyguard for a period of time. With Miss Zhao's diplomatic skills, the two people must have formed a basic friendship. Seeing that Sun Lang wasn't here, the Taoist by Shui suggested, "Then how about we go to Marquis Jinggan Manor? Miss Zhao admires benefactor Sun. Maybe she has news of his whereabouts." Taoist by Shui pondered for a moment and shook his head. No. Didn't that Qin guy say that he lives in Marquis Jinggan Manor? If we go to his door like this, we will most likely alert him and attract his attention. It won't be good. We have to first think of a foolproof plan. Let me think. Hey, I got it. He looked at Master Sanzang and smiled brightly. I almost forgot. Master Sun and the head of Mingzhou's Ranger Association, Hu Shouxin, are close friends. Why don't we go find Master Sun and tell him about this and ask him to help us pass the message? Speaking of which, this old man also has some friendship with Master Sunday. Last time when I was injured, it was thanks to him that I received treatment. Tang family Sanzang didn't know much about Hu Shouxin. She only instinctively felt that it wasn't right for Sun Lang and Marquis Jinggan Fu's matter to involve an outsider that he didn't want to do. She casually asked, "Is there no problem? What problem can there be? You don't know how strong the friendship between Master Sun and Master Sun is." The Taoist by Shui smiled brightly and gave a thumbs up. "Let me tell you, once Master Sun knows, this matter will be settled." Chapter 371. It was strange. All of them. Why aren't they here? Taoist by Shui and Sanzang arrived at Zhongli Tower and found that Hu Shouxin was not there. Fortunately, Hu Shouxin had recuperated in Zhongli Tower before, so most of the rangers knew him and asked him enthusiastically. However, even though they were familiar with Hu Shouxin, when Taoist priest White Snow asked about Hu Shouxin's whereabouts and what he was doing, those paladins kept their mouths shut. Taoist priest White Snow asked a few questions, but he still didn't know when Hu Shouxin would come back. He had no choice but to say, "Then I'll leave a letter. When Lord Hu comes back, please pass it to him immediately. Remember, it's an urgent matter." The ranger saw that White Snow was serious, so he found him a pen and paper and asked him to write a letter. White Snow sat in the hall and wrote for a while. Then he carefully sealed the letter and handed it to the ranger for safekeeping. He turned around and saw that the hall was full of people. Rangers who were not on a mission were sitting in the hall, chatting and drinking. Then he felt something strange. He looked up and saw two people leaning on the railing on the second floor, looking down. Out of professional habit, he narrowed his eyes and glanced at the two people's faces. They looked distant and a little reserved. They seemed to be unfamiliar with the surrounding environment. They should not be members of the local ranger guild. Their eyes were alert and inquisitive, indicating that they were watching something. Strange. He calmly withdrew his gaze and said to the ranger, "There are a few new faces in the tower today." The ranger checked the letter and then hid it close to his body. He replied, "They are Hu Huishou's friends. Don't ask about other things." Taoist by Shui nodded and said, "I know. I'll leave now. Remember, this letter is very important. You must give it to Mr. Hu, or the consequences will be unpredictable. Do you understand?" After getting the reply, Taoist by Shui went out and met Master Sanzang, who was waiting outside. Master Sanzang asked, "Have you seen Mr. Hu?" Taoist by Shui shook his head and said, "No, I've left a letter. But I feel that something is wrong. Something big is going to happen." Master Sanzang asked doubtfully, "What big thing?" Taoist by Shui frowned and thought for a moment. He shook his head without a clue. "I don't know. Forget it. Anyway, with Mr. Hu and Mr. Sun here, No matter how big the storm is, it can't be raised. Don't worry, don't worry. However, Taoist Bai Shui never expected that at this moment, Mr. Shoshin was in Marquis, Jingon Manor. Early this morning, after sending the imperial envoy and his entourage back to Zhongyi Tower, he used the excuse that he had something to do and ran out alone. After circling around Mingzhou, he secretly returned to Marquis, Jingon Manor. He returned for no other reason than to protect his younger brother Qin. Because in the negotiations with eldest Miss Zhao Feihuang this morning, Mr. Hu keenly sensed that Zhao Feihuang very abruptly directed the matter to Sun Lang. He was trying to lure Qin Hui and let him know that there was such a person here. In old Hu's mind, Zhao Feihuang had already completely become Sun Lang's echo. Any decision that Sun Lang made, Zhao Feihuang would resolutely protect it. Any instructions that Sun Lang gave, Zhao Feihuang would unswervingly follow them. Therefore, in old Hu's eyes, Zhao Feihuang's actions were no different from Sun Lang, throwing out bait with the intention of catching a big fish named Qin Hui. But old Hu came aggressively to denounce Qin Hui and instead ate Sun Lang's stick. Misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. Sun Lang tightly gripped Hu Shoshin's hand. His expression was pained as he said, "This Miss Zhao, she's really scheming. Sometimes she's too childish. She actually stirred up trouble and wanted to create big news. Tell me, why did she mention me for no reason? She's stirring up trouble for no reason. This is great. New problems have arisen. Qin Hui probably already has suspicions. I'm very ennuyé." Hu Shoshin turned his head with a strange expression. Then, he saw Zhao Feihuang sobbing with tears in her eyes. "Sun Lang, I won't dare to do it again. Can you forgive me?" Old Hu turned his head with a strange expression again. Sun Lang said angrily, "This woman, if you don't hit her for 3 days, she'll go up to the roof and tear down the tiles. She can't do anything right, but she's good at ruining things. Old Hu, calm down. If you're still angry, I'll whip her a few times to relieve your anger. How about that? Of course, I won't use the one I brought with me. She'll die. In short, I'm really ashamed. Even if you use other whips, she'll die." Sun Lang seemed to really be angry. After scolding Miss Zhao, he still didn't vent his anger. It seemed that he really wanted to look for a whip. Miss Zhao's delicate body was trembling and her face was pale. She seemed to be really afraid and regretful. She looked at Hu Shoshin with a timid, begging eyes like a cub. She seemed to be begging Hu Huaisho to lend a hand and persuade Sun Lang. Old Hu was depressed and almost wanted to vomit blood. "What can I do? What do you want me to do? I'm also very desperate." In the end, he reached out to stop Sun Lang. Hey, don't go too far. You're a real man. What's wrong with hitting a woman?" Sun Lang said proudly. "Old Hu, you're in the wrong here. What's wrong with hitting your wife for no reason? What's wrong with that? That's what a real man is. Besides, this time there's a reason for it. Look at you. I'm afraid that after marriage, you've been strictly controlled by your wife. You've been kneeling on the washboard a lot. Shame. Hu Shoshin was taken advantage of by Sun Lang. While he was in a daze, he heard Miss Zhao say softly with tears, "Thank you for your kindness, Uncle Hu, but this is my family's law. I've done something wrong, so I have to be punished. If Uncle Hu is unwilling to forgive me, then let Sun Lang hit me. If Uncle Hu is still angry, then let Sun Lang beat me to death." Well, it was another round of reprimanding. Before Old Hu could say anything, under the coordination of this pair of men and women, he became a coward who was being bullied by his wife and a narrow-minded person who wants to force Miss Zhao to her death. Big Stick Hu rolled his eyes wildly. All right. I don't blame Miss Zhao. Okay." As soon as he finished speaking, Sun Lang let go of his hand, and his angry expression immediately disappeared. He nodded calmly at Miss Zhao. Okay, Boss Hu is not angry anymore. In an instant, the grief on Miss Zhao's face disappeared, and she said with a smile, "Uncle Hu is really magnanimous. I'm endlessly grateful. Oh, I want to chop you two sluts to death. Chop you to death, ah. He was helpless and wanted to explode, but he knew that with Sun Lang, this bastard ability, once they started talking about other things, the topic would directly change to Southern Heavenly Gate in the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. The two-man show just now was nothing more than this bastard scheme. He sneered for a while, and used a sharp gaze to stare at Sun Lang and Zhao Fei Huang, attempting to arouse the shame and guilt in the hearts of this adulterous couple. However, it was not of any use. The two people's faces were extremely thick. Even if they were being stared at by Hu Shouxin, they could still chat and laugh as if nothing had happened. Hu Shouxin sighed. It seems that you really want to go torment and tease Brother Qin a bit, Sun Lang said with a stern expression. You are slandering me like this. I am clearly using my own method to protect Marquis Jinggan Fu. How to become playing in your mouth? Hu Shouxin couldn't be bothered to argue with him. He sighed, Sun Lang, it's a good thing that Brother Qin doesn't know your real name. Otherwise, everything would be over. Do you really not trust him that much? Sun Lang calmly said, there are not many people in this world that are worthy of trust. I have never believed in people's hearts, because people's hearts are complicated and cannot be seen clearly. For example, he looked at Hu Shouxin and smiled. What you old Hu are thinking right now, and what you're planning to do, I'm also a bit unable to understand. Old Hu's heart trembled, and he lowered his eyes, calmly saying, I would rather betray the world than let the world betray me. Sun Lang was startled, and his tone was calm. I told you this story before. I told you the word betray could possibly mean carrying. Hu Shouxin calmly said, to me, it means carrying. Sun Lang smiled. Idiot, the world is so big. The four seas are so deep. The people's hearts are so crafty. The chaos of karma. Can you bear all of it? Old Hu also smiled. You can bear all of it, why can't I? This is not something that I should bear in the first place. I already won't do it. If you're willing to do this kind of stupid thing, then you can go and smash your head until it bleeds. Sun Lang's expression was cold. After a moment of silence, he still revealed a smile. But I am used to carrying heavy things. Once I am free, I find that my strength has increased by quite a bit. There are some things that are not that heavy, but I can actually lift them up and move them around as I please. The past period of time was regrettable and hateful, but it was not completely fruitless. So old Hu, go ahead and do it. This son does not want to touch those messes again, but just carrying a skinny pig like you who weighs less is very relaxing. Hu Shouxin also smiled. I won't give you the chance. Now it's my turn to carry you. Sun Lang frowned. Get out of here. You don't need to carry me. Go and carry your wife and child. Hu Shouxin was still smiling. He cupped his hands and said goodbye. This visit did not seem to have solved any problems, but it seemed to have removed a part of his heart. It made him make up his mind to do something that he had planned to do more calmly. He looked up to the sky and laughed out loud. Sun Lang frowned. Looking at old Hu's back, he pondered, is this idiot hiding something from me? Zhao Fei Huang poked his head out from behind him and nodded. His tone was somewhat cautious. Sun Lang, don't underestimate Hu Huaishou. I know that you two are very familiar with each other and are comrades who have supported each other through life and death. But it is precisely because people are too familiar with each other that they overlook some things, isn't it? In your eyes, he seems to be just a passionate and straightforward idiot. But in the eyes of an outsider like me, how can a general who can survive on the heaven's origin battlefield only have courage and strength? That's indeed the case. But fortunately, old Hu is already married and has a wife and a daughter. Because of all the restrictions, the hateful dog will think twice before he does anything. Generally speaking, he won't do anything stupid that will put his life at risk. Sun Lang said gloomily, as long as he has concerns in his heart, he will think twice before he does anything. The moment of hesitation and consideration is enough for me to discover the clue, break his legs, and throw him home to nurse his baby. On this side, Hu Huaishou had solved the difficult problem and returned to Zhongyi Tower with light steps. Before he could sit down, he was hit on the head again. Taoist White Snow's letter was placed on the table. He didn't know much about this Taoist White Snow from Zhengyang Palace. He came from an orthodox sect and seemed to be very good at fortune-telling. Sun Lang's evaluation of him was that he was a very scary person. When he goes crazy, he will even nurse himself, or something like that. Although he didn't understand, people who could be evaluated as very powerful by Sun Lang were usually the type who had problems in the head. What kind of letter could a Taoist priest with problems in the head send him? Most likely, he would say some inexplicable bullshit. Thinking this, he drank a mouthful of tea and opened the letter. He casually glanced at it twice. With a puff, the tea in his mouth sprayed out. He opened his eyes wide and read it twice more. He immediately panicked. What the hell? Brother Qin actually noticed the clues and had already stepped half a foot into Sun Lang's trap. For a moment, he was anxious and angry. More than that, he hated Qin Hui for not living up to his expectations. Brother Qin, oh Brother Qin, what should I say about you? It's fine that you're suspicious of Sun Lang, but even Taoist White Snow, this Taoist White Snow's brain-damaged nose, can see through your thoughts. How honest and straightforward are you? A flash of lightning appeared in his hand and immediately destroyed the letter. As for Taoist White Snow's mention of inform Hero Sun as soon as possible so that he could be prepared and so on, it was naturally ignored. What kind of joke is this? Should I tell Sun Lang? Isn't that the same as telling him that your plan is already half a success and you should hurry to the next step? Old, who sat in his chair with his brows tightly furrowed. His thoughts were in a mess. The situation had become very troublesome. Qin Hui kept running down the path of death, leaving him helpless. He was thinking about how to stop Qin Hui from continuing to seek death when he suddenly heard a knock on the door. The guard outside reported, "President, Mr. Qin requests an audience." Hu Shouxin's heart thumped. He felt that things were not going well. As expected, after Qin Hui entered, he first greeted Old Hu. After sitting down, he directly asked, "The Imperial Envoy Guard has 2 attendants. This afternoon, they were chatting in the hall when they saw a Taoist priest come in. He seemed to have written a letter on the spot and handed it to the ranger guarding the door. You should have come to find brother, right?" These words were very shrewd and ruthless. It made Hu Shouxin hesitate even if he wanted to lie. He coughed lightly and said as if nothing had happened, "Brother, why are you concerned about this?" Qin Hui smiled and said, "I won't hide it from brother. Today, I was walking on the street with brother Yuanzhong when we suddenly bumped into a Taoist priest. He said to my face that I was going to have a bloody disaster. He was very mysterious and sneaky and didn't seem like a good person." Hu Shouxin's expression did not change. He cursed silently in his heart. "You still have the face to say that. He can see that you don't seem like a good person." The Imperial Envoy did not know what Hu Shouxin was thinking. He saw that Old Hu's mind was not focused and secretly gritted his teeth. He made a decision and immediately made a dangerous move. He directly asked, "I won't hide it from brother." In the words of that evil Taoist priest, he claimed that he had been entrusted by a great hero son to tell my fortune. That great hero son also seems to have some connection with the Marquis of Jingganfu. Does brother know of this? A trace of shock flashed through Hu Shouxin's eyes. This change in expression only lasted for a moment before it immediately calmed down. He said there was such a thing. Qin Hui, who had been paying close attention to the changes in Hu Shouxin's expression, keenly captured this moment of shock. His heart trembled. He won the gamble. He calmly continued to ask, "Brother doesn't know? May I ask what letter this Taoist priest left for brother?" Hu Shouxin furrowed his brows and said, "This matter has nothing to do with younger brother. Younger brother should focus on carrying out the emperor's order and investigate the matter of the Marquis of Jingganfu." Qin Hui seemed to have already expected this kind of prevarication. He nodded and then smiled. "Younger brother knows. Then let's talk about the matter of the Marquis of Jingganfu. Younger brother went to 6 fan school this afternoon and had an in-depth discussion with arrestor Liang Bufan. I also looked at the case file at that time. Younger brother discovered that when a group of armed bandits attacked the Marquis of Jingganfu, they relied on the will of the loyal servants of the Marquis, Fu, to repel them. There was also credit from the government and the Ranger Association. According to the records in the file, this matter was due to a female arrestor who did not lose out to men and a young and promising ranger who worked together to investigate the bandit scheme. With the assistance of the Ranger Association and 6 Fan School, they solved this big case. May I ask, is this true or not? Hushoshin's expression had already become somewhat ugly. He nodded and said, "It is indeed so." Qin Hui struck while the iron was hot and sincerely said, "Younger brother originally wanted to talk with that female arrestor who was a hero and obtain some feedback on the case. But unfortunately, it was said that this young lady had already resigned from her position. Younger brother thought about it, and as expected, I still have to ask elder brother, can you let me see that young and promising ranger who made great contributions, so that I can understand the situation at that time?" Hushoshin's heart shook. The hand under the table almost crushed the chair handle. He calmly said, "Unfortunately, this ranger already left Mingzhou a few days ago and went to Songzhou to handle some matters. Younger brother will not be able to see him." Qin Hui revealed a regretful expression and shook his head, sighing, "What a coincidence. What a pity, what a pity. Then, where did that female arrestor who resigned from her position go?" "Younger brother." Hushoshin interrupted Qin Hui's words and sternly said, "Younger brother, it's not that elder brother is ordering you around, but this matter mainly depends on the feedback and actions of Marquis Jingganfu. We need to wait for Ms. Zhao to come up with a plan and then come up with a flawless truth. We don't need to act on our own and investigate the truth. Younger brother, don't you think this is right?" Qin Hui stared blankly and then cupped his hands with a smile, saying, "Elder brother is right. Younger brother's occupational disease is acting up and habitually wants to get to the bottom of things. All right, I won't ask anymore." Hushoshin nodded and then sincerely said, "Younger brother, this matter has deep implications. You and I are brothers, so I will speak frankly. There are some things that you don't need to investigate too deeply. Don't worry, I will take full responsibility for this matter. I will definitely not let younger brother suffer a loss. You should also cooperate more, all right?" Qin Hui repeatedly nodded his head in agreement. The two chatted for a while more before Qin Hui used the excuse that he was tired and wanted to return to his room to rest. Hushoshin did not stay any longer and sent younger brother Qin off. But the moment Qin Hui turned around, the two people's expressions became gloomy at the same time. "Sun Lang, you actually openly sent Taoist priest White Snow to drive a wedge between me and Qin Hui. Hushoshin, you actually cooperated with that so-called great hero son to scheme against me. They thought this way." The matter was already quickly moving in a direction that no one could predict. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.